Hey, what's up? It's Autumn, and this is Just a Thought. You know what?
That's the jam.
It is. It is the jam, right?
Bang. Yo, what did
It
I
got
just
you hyped
sign up?
already.
I
Straight
don't know
out,
what you signed up for. Whatever it is,
just
it
straight out
seems
the gate. Straight out the gate.
straight dope right out the gate. Like she got the whole intro self-edited,
All of that. We
all of
ready.
that. Your
Today's not the
own
first day.
studio, killing the game.
Have you met me?
I mean, I
Once or
think I
twice.
did. I
Once
thought
or
I
twice.
did. I thought I did. But apparently I had not met all that is Autumn.
All of it. But you about to. You about to.
I'm excited.
Listen, I'm super hyped for today. I mean, clearly you super hyped for today, and I appreciate your energy. Um, I'm gonna read this bio because I want people to know and understand who you are before we get into this conversation that is about to be so good. And I know it's gonna be good because it's me and you. And this is the way that we vibe. This is our energy. People about to get a sneak peek behind the curtain of how you and I do the things. So yeah, we should have shared this a long time ago, quite honestly.
I
So
don't know. I don't know. One of us might have gotten canceled at this point. So
you're not wrong. Probably both of us.
at least one of us might have gotten canceled before you
Listen,
started.
listen, let's just hope this conversation don't end in tears because you have been known to make me cry.
Don't
Make me
put
want
that
to
on
cry.
me. Don't put that on me. Your feelings are your feelings. Like I can't make you cry. You know what I'm saying?
What you have?
Yo, but it's all love though. It's
Have.
all love.
I know that's a good thing. That just means that it's like stirring up the stuff. It's making me think, it's challenging me, making me uncomfortable, so it's a good thing. It don't feel good in the moment,
Vice
but it's a
versa.
good
Vice
thing.
versa. Vice versa.
I ain't made you cry, but that's okay.
But that's not the point.
Eternally.
Like that's not the point though. You made me
Uh-oh.
think though. You know what I'm
Tit
saying?
for tat. Tit for
You
tat.
know,
I want to see some tears.
gotta make the soul cry. You know what I'm saying? You made me cry on the inside.
All right, fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, listen, they already see what it's about to be, but let me get through this intro. I just want to introduce Saran to everyone. A little bit, this is going to be kind of formal, but also kind of not formal because I just, so you, of course, you are a dedicated father. I put that first because I think that that's one of the things that's most important to you. You're a seasoned public servant and a deep thinking advocate of holistic growth, which is why we vibe so well. We on the same wavelength with that. You spent several years in public service, shaping policy and initiatives that impact communities, which again, I think is very relevant to this conversation. He is a proud member of Kappa Alpha Psi. Listen, hold up. Let me just pause right there because these Kappas got me in a chokehold. I'm going to be real. You already know. When they say she with the new style, she is I am she.
Hey, look. Hey, look. Nobody ever said you weren't bright. Okay. Nobody. One person that said that before.
Indeed. These Kappas, they got me. Anyway, moving on. He has experienced both marriage and divorce and brings, I think, a unique and thoughtful perspective to conversations about relationships, masculinity, and fatherhood. I appreciate your wisdom and your introspection and your ability to see the bigger picture. But more than just being a guest and all these other things, you are my dear friend who challenges me and inspires me. And so I'm really hyped to have this conversation. And I hope that intro was cool. Was that cool?
That was dope. Like I said, that's why I gave you creative license, like to write whatever you wanted to write, because I didn't know what made sense for the platform.
Nah.
So
By creative license, he means he was lazy and he didn't do the homework assignment. But that's okay.
That's your spin. That's how you put it. But I really just turned over my entire description of who I am
over to me.
You
trusted me with it.
That was trust, like it's all about the perspective that you look at,
I mean, I take it that way. I like that spin. That is trust.
That spin.
I like it. Okay, we will get down to words.
It just allowed you to introduce me as you see me to the public. That, I mean,
That's good.
Most
I
people,
like that.
most people don't do that. Most people are like, nah, you gotta make sure you add the degrees in there. You make sure
Yeah,
that you
yeah.
tell
Does that
people
really
that,
matter though?
huh?
Does that really matter? I mean, okay, I'm not.
To some people it does. To some
Some
people it
people it
gives
does.
them validation for what they're about to say or what, you
This is
know.
true, but there's a whole lot of people with a whole lot of degrees who saying a whole lot of stuff that is
Absolutely.
okay. So
Absolutely. We're
it
gonna
just,
leave it at that.
but you're right, and
We
I
ain't
wouldn't have
piss
taken that
everybody
from
off.
you.
We ain't gonna piss everybody off, but we got, the folks who got more degrees in a thermometer but can't
It's
tell the
true.
temperature, you know,
That part,
in
that
a
part.
room, you
Nobody,
know.
nobody came to see you, Otis. Nobody cared.
Exactly.
Listen, especially like you already know me, especially if it ain't aligning with what the words say. I don't really care about nothing you talking about, quite
Preaching
honestly.
that. She
Like,
preaching that.
yeah, yeah, indeed. So, that's what really matters. Um, so anyway, I really want to get into this, because I think that today is going to be a really good, insightful, thought-provoking conversation. I'm excited. So I'm just going to jump right in.
Mm.
Okay. You ready?
I'm scared now what the question
The
was.
build up, the build up.
Yeah, because at first the intro
Listen,
got me in the chokehold. You know what I'm saying? The, your introduction of me stomped me out, and now you about to revive me with some smelling sauce.
exactly,
And
exactly. I'm about to bring you back. Um, no, seriously. What's the biggest reason that men aren't getting married today?
oh
We're gonna
Lord,
stop.
you
We're gonna
just
jump right immediately.
straight
I
edge
want to know from
ball.
you because we talk about this all the time, and I just want. What is the reason that
Um,
men are not getting married?
well, I think for starters, not everybody is going to have the same reason.
Of
So
course,
not everybody is a monolith.
I appreciate your diplomacy.
No, seriously, I was married for probably about 11 years or something like that. So, I made that choice at one point or another. Um, Now divorced. So I know the reasons why I did it. Um, Communication with my other brothers who are out here and, myself who's out here and single. I think that it's legitimately a fear. You
Mm.
see all the horror stories of other brothers who have got married and it didn't work out, and for various reasons, and some of whom have lost a lot. You see a guy who's in love, working hard for his family. Obviously, you don't see the things that are happening behind closed doors, but you see a guy who is doing everything that he can do, and he's got all of the stuff that I think we preach that we want: the family, the house, the white picket fence, the job, all of the stuff. And then, you see them go through a divorce and he's living in his mama basement
Mm.
and, or living in a best friend's Airbnb. Um, and,
A best friend's Airbnb.
seriously, and people look at that and they like, I don't want that,
Right,
and I don't think anybody ever gets married to get divorced.
right.
Um, but that fear is, I think, palpable with a lot of guys. And
So let me just
and I
pause you
think
right
and I think people look more at the horror stories than we do
the
the
positive.
fairy tales.
Uh-huh.
And and maybe it's because we see more of the horror stories than we do the fairy tales, because a lot of guys who experience the fairy tales don't typically write the books about them and don't typically end up on social media talking about it. They typically quiet off to their self, living their best life.
That's exactly. I was gonna say that's why their marriages are amazing.
You know?
Because they off in the corner living their best life. But
Yeah,
I wanna pause you two things. Number one, I think you and I can both agree, that I think that's the point. Fairy marriages are not no marriage is a fairy tale, right? Every marriage requires work, and there are people who are putting in work, and there are people who are not always. I'm not gonna say I mean always, but there are a lot of people who are just not. They're putting in more work trying to be an individual than they are trying to be a team. But
yeah,
we'll put a pause in that. The thing that I do want to ask you about is that you said something very interesting, is like this idea of sort of marriage being a financial liability, right? Living in your mom's basement and that kind of thing. But
But
there's
divorce is a financial liability.
okay, divorce. Oh, there. Excuse me. Thank you. You're correct. You're correct. My
Divorce
fault.
being
My
a
fault.
financial
Divorce.
liability.
Divorce being not marriage. Dear God. Okay, you're right. Marriage is actually a wealth builder. But yes,
Yeah, marriage can be a wealth builder, but
yes,
divorce is the financial
it's a
liability
liability.
that folks
Um,
are afraid of. And again,
but
they're
wait a minute, Mr. Ron. Wait a minute. Wait
yeah,
a minute. Because I want you to add to this. Because my curiosity comes around: is the biggest thing the liabilities surrounding finances, or is the biggest thing the liability surrounding emotional trauma that goes with the like right? So
yeah.
that's
No,
the
I
question.
mean, you hit the nail on the head. So when I say fear, I may have used the financial piece as an example, but that fear has multiple prongs, right?
Yeah.
You got the fear of being vulnerable to
Mhm.
somebody else, and the fear of the amount of work that it takes to make a marriage work or any relationship work.
Mm.
You got that fear of missing out, that FOMO. A lot of brothers out there think that it's that Carnival's coming to town and
And it's not.
all
It is not. And so listen, if it is, it's not
they're
coming to
gonna,
town for you.
they're gonna
Let
miss
me be clear. People got a higher esteem of themselves than is actual.
Hey, you got some of those things where the FOMO taps in, and I'm scared that I'm gonna miss out on somebody else that
Not
might be.
Carnival coming to
I'm just saying, Carnival might be coming to town, and you might catch one of those Trinidadian women, and they might have fallen in love if not for the wedding ring. You got
no.
that mentality that some brothers might have, and so that fear has multiple prongs. The
Um,
financial one is just,
one of them.
one of the tentacles, but absolutely it's a fear of, trying to work at something, and I don't want to give the impression that it's just a bunch of brothers running from hard work. It's
I
guys out there,
mean,
but to be clear on what the hard work is, right?
okay, okay.
So look, if men ran away from hard work on a day-to-day basis, this world would stop. There's men out
Yeah.
there who work in coal mines. There's men out there who work on electrical lines and thousands of feet in the air building
Yeah.
skyscrapers. Who go to work in those types of jobs where you got to shower after work versus before work.
Right.
Who are not used to, who are not afraid of hard work.
Right.
You got guys who are in the gym every day working hard,
Getting it in.
getting it in
No,
on the
hitting
meal
games.
plans, right, engaged in that.
Yeah.
Fatherhood is difficult, but you got men who strap it up and go out there to be the best fathers that they can. So
Right.
I think that I don't want to make it look like it's just guys afraid of hard work. I think
Well,
marriage
it's
is
a
one of
type
those.
of hard work,
I think
right? There,
marriage is one of those things though that requires a level of understanding that you can work as hard as you can and still may not get the outcomes that
well,
you want.
well,
And I think that
listen, listen.
I think that is also a fear which, some guys just
Fair.
aren't necessarily comfortable with. Because if I go to work and I put my 100% in work,
You know you're getting a paycheck.
I'm gonna get a return back. If I
Well,
go to the gym and I'm in there 2 days out of the
you
week,
know
no
you're
matter
getting
how
much.
long it takes, I'm gonna see results.
Right.
If I got the meal plan and I'm dedicated, I'm committed to it, no matter how hard it is, I'm gonna see the results. But marriage is one of those things where you can do everything right or close to right, because nobody's perfect. But you
Right.
can do everything close to right and it still may not work. And I think that is a part of the fear that people have and have to overcome in order to
So
make it work.
so here's the deal, because you okay, so you said a lot in there, and you said a lot in there. But this here's a couple things, sir. Couple things. I agreed, right, that men are out here working hard. Absolutely, do not want to take that from them. But to your point, there's working hard in different ways and in different areas, right? So nobody has ever accused a man of not being able to work hard physically, not being able to work hard, out in the workplace, like those kinds of things. We're not going to take that from him, and absolute respect,
Mhm.
100%. taking care of their families very much in that way. Even showing up as community leaders in a lot of ways, right? But then when you get to your home, you're not putting in the work that is required, which is a different type of work, right? Is an emotional connection, a vulnerability work, a healing work, right? That's a whole different kind of muscle set that men are not necessarily putting in the work there. And I just want to be, another point here is that every skill set don't translate to every arena. So you could be in the workplace killing it, being amazing, out here being decisive, leading, doing all the things, and be home and be a horrible husband. I'm not saying that that's the case. You know what I mean? Even when you're trying. So I just want to be clear about that. I don't mean horrible husband as
I know what you
yeah,
mean.
you're doing that. Well, not to you. I'm trying to make it clear to everybody who's watching this, because it's.
No, I get you, because there's a different level of hard work, the emotional work that's required, the vulnerability that's required is a different type of hard work that you need. And you don't necessarily see the outcomes of that kind of work, but even still, there's a fear that lies in that, because there are guys who do try to become more vulnerable.
Oh yeah.
Listen
and
more,
ain't showing up the way they need to.
And maybe it's too late for them to start doing that, or maybe those things weren't necessarily the real reasons why it's not working, but those were the reasons that were presented to them. And so even still, you still have that fear that I could work on myself, that I could do those things, and it's still not pan out the way that I want. It's
so
now let's be clear.
Is that the reason to quit, to not even get engaged, though?
Let's be clear. That ain't necessarily a reason. So when I describe why, I'm not necessarily saying it's a good reason.
You're not co-signing.
I'm not co-signing it. I'm just saying that's the reason, because I'm
about to bust you out.
Because we do stuff where we don't see, it's not guaranteed outcome all the time. We put money on the parlays. We put money on the parlays. We
I'm about to bust you out.
We do that. So, we do all the thinking for fantasy football, and we do all the lead up and the work for it. And we get into it with the understanding that we could have a successful season, but odds are we not coming home.
You're not getting these legs, sir. I don't know about these parlays and these legs. You're not getting them all. You're not winning.
That don't stop us from trying in that regard. But
so let me ask you. So is the problem maybe that now society and culture, right, to this point, because we do things when we feel like it's worth it. We feel like even the risk maybe it's always going to be there, but we feel like the benefit is worth the risk.
Right.
And so is the reason that men are, not taking that risk is because they don't feel like the benefit of marriage is worth it, which, because that's a comma, right? Also is the reason there partly because of how women are or are not showing up in marriage. Because I want to, you and I know we've had this conversation, and again, I want to level set, and we probably should have did this from the very beginning, which was to say what sort of the ideal state of marriage is. That's what we probably should have said, that all the conversation is centered around this being sort of the perfect example, and we can still do that. But you and I have had this conversation before, and you know that I give women just as much of the business in relationship issues and things like that as I do men, right? And a huge part of why you and I connected was surrounding my curiosity and wanting to step out of sort of my own feminine or female perspective to understand from a male side what is happening here, because that is real and valid, and I don't think that women give enough space to that. So agreed? Do we agree?
No, we don't disagree at all.
Okay. So just ideal, ideal, what is the ideal picture of marriage?
Ideal picture of marriage. Okay, so, that's a very difficult question to ask.
I can go first.
You go first. Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not going to put you out there like that. It's a good question, and I'm not going to do a cop-out and make you go first, because you've done that to me before.
Wow. Listen, I knew immediately when you said it, I knew immediately where you were going
I ain't
with
gonna
that.
do that to you. I ain't gonna do that to you. You ask me a legit question, I'm gonna try to answer it, and if I'm off, whatever. But an ideal view of
I'm editing that part out.
why you gonna edit that out? Nah, keep that smoke so people understand. um, so an ideal version of marriage, without being too complicated, is just two people who are dedicated to each other and dedicated to a greater vision. And to me, that's the ideal version of marriage. Two people who are dedicated to the same values, to the same dreams and ambitions, and who are committed to one another as well as those dreams and ambitions.
Okay.
And so, when you have two people who are aligned with their values, and two people who see a vision as greater than just themselves, and as individuals, I don't think you can get more ideal than that. It's when one or both parties start to diverge from their values, to diverge from their vision, and they become individual visions rather than the family vision. And that's not to say that family visions can't include individual goals and attainment, but we don't see them as individual. We see them as our collective goals. So, your success is my success. My success is your success, and our success is the family's success. And so, once you start diverging from those things, that's when you get into the less ideal scenarios. But just on its face, two people who are connected to each other, to their values, two people who are connected to a vision that's greater than themselves, and in alignment with something that is greater than themselves. And I would say that's God.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to have this institution which, and not be subservient to something that is greater than you guys. It's very difficult to see a successful relationship where two people have not submitted to something that's greater than them.
Right. Right. So we're saying the same thing. No, we're saying the same thing. No,
That's not me and Autumn get out of arguments. Like somebody just says, we're saying the same thing.
so we just stop and move on. I'm not doing this with you no more. Whatever. We're saying the same thing.
Exactly. But no, I mean,
in this case, we are like, look, the only thing
Yeah.
that I would add, right? The only thing that I would add, because again, Christian worldview, the only thing that I would add to that is that I think that marriage, which is a huge problem on both sides of the fence, is that we're going into marriage with the wrong viewpoint, the wrong criteria, goals, agenda in mind.
Yeah.
Marriage is truly an assignment. It is an assignment, right? God has a purpose for everyone's life, and he has put you in that person's life in order to help with their assignment. You guys are assignment partners. That's literally what the benefit, the overflow, the perk is, right? I get to sleep with this person. I get to do, you know what I mean? Do all the things. Listen, just act right. Okay. Act right. Because I see your face. Anywho, these are the
I was cool with it until you start adding the adlibs.
I know. Listen, this is me. This is my feeling. They belong to me. I can have them, right? I said I agree with you, and this is my piece. Okay,
We're saying the same thing.
we're saying the same thing. No, we're not. Not on this part. We're not. But we gonna get there. Anywho, so yeah, that when you look at it with the perspective of my relationship with God causes me to do the things that he has called me to do, which is to honor you, to show up for you in the way that I am supposed to in my role in, in this relationship. And so how I act, what I do and I don't do, and, the standard I hold myself to has nothing to do with you, has nothing to do with whether or not you being obedient. It has everything to do with me being obedient. And right now we very tit for tat, very transactional. If you do, then I'll do. You show up, I'll show up. We meet energy with energy instead of being like, nah, regardless of how you crash out, I'm doing what God told me to do. Now, you on your own, sis or bro, whatever it is. But I think that that's the part that's really kind of missing is
that's an elevated space that I have not attained yet.
We all work in progress.
The guy not done with me yet. He not done with me. I'm still a work in progress. I still got to cook a little bit longer. Because if you not showing up the way I'm showing up, somebody gotta go. Okay.
See what I'm saying?
I feel you.
But see, look,
that's right. I'm not saying it is right. Okay. I'm not saying that it makes for a great marriage scenario. I'm just saying that
that's where you would ever. And you're not the only one.
I have not graduated to that next level of what you do is what you do. I'm working and doing my thing, and you do whatever you do because I'm locked in. Because
well, here's the thing. You know what's crazy about this, Ron?
You serving the street. You serving the streets, but I'm serving a greater power, and I'ma just keep serving the greater power.
Exiting out of this conversation.
Serving the streets. I'm not there. I'm not there. That's not where I'm at.
Okay. I'm not saying don't have boundaries. I'm not saying, right? Like, we're not talking about all that. But what I will say is this. You're saying you're not there yet. In some places in your life, you absolutely are, right? Mm-hmm. That regardless of what anybody else is doing in the world, right? Mm-hmm. Politically, societally, whatever, right? Yes. You like, no, I'm regardless of however you doing, I have a standard that I hold to.
Right.
So marriage is the same thing. I think the piece that makes it harder is there's obviously a different level of expectation and vulnerability that happens there. But no.
So here's the difference, right? Here's the difference.
Okay.
Other people outside, you mentioned, like, it's people in the world and society who has these positions and these beliefs that I may not necessarily subscribe to. And regardless of what they're doing, I've got my own standard that I live by. Mm-hmm. And, cool. Right. I understand that. The difference is, society as a whole didn't make a commitment to me. Society as a whole ain't never committed anything to me. And right. For the most part,
vulnerability. Yeah.
And for the most part, I've not necessarily committed to provide for and protect society,
right,
and all of the people out there, but I have for this individual. And so, that's where it's a little bit different, where I can say, to the rest of society, like, y'all do what you're doing. I'm committed to.
I'm excuse myself from this.
My values. I'm excuse myself from this.
Yeah.
I can't excuse myself from somebody who got my last name. Like,
right. 100.
They represent me
right
out here, and I represent them as well. So it's not as easy for me to detach the two. I just haven't graduated to that next level.
Listen,
of awareness and
it's not even
spiritual understanding.
I'm not asking you to be subhuman, right? Or not.
I'm
not asking you to be outside of your humanity. What I'm saying is this, because I agree, right? That there's certain level of expectation is what makes it harder.
Right.
We are 100. We are one. So the expectation is that you would treat me the way that you would expect, right? So that you would show up in the way that you vowed to, that you would adhere to certain boundaries and all of the things. So I get that part, right? But I get that part. And my point is that and again, this is the other thing that I think that you and I failed to mention, because this is the piece that's key here. Mm-hmm. We are having the expectation that both partners are showing up.
Correct.
And doing, correct, both are equally doing this. And so that would make the issue that you're talking about non-existent.
That would be null. It would be null
and void. Right. Because I know that outside of just you being a human, mm-hmm, right, and outside of me being a human, mm-hmm, we know that we are both committed to showing up and being the best version of ourselves for each other. Right. And that's the ideal part of marriage, right? Now, if you didn't marry a buffoon,
people do from time to time. People do that
from time to time.
People do that from time to time.
10 out of 10 would not recommend, but people do. Against all wisdom and good judgment. They do.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It happens.
So then, yes, that becomes an issue for you that
Yeah.
you are giving more than that other person is giving.
Right.
But you know what I mean? Saying you picked them. So there's that.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. You
yes,
can't blame nobody.
and listen, quite honestly, sometimes you are the buffoon.
Sometimes you are. Sometimes both are the buffoons. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's both and more. It's not either or.
Right.
And
We
so
want to leave space for all the options
leave
here.
space for all of the options, all of the different combinations.
Yes.
You know, sometimes you weren't buffoons when you started, but now you've grown into buffoons.
You have evolved.
You know, sometimes you started as buffoons. One person's buffoonery diminishes, but the other one's continues to maintain all of the things.
All of the things.
You
Yeah.
know,
So the ideal state, though, the
the
ideal state
ideal scenario
is
would be
that both are trying to, be the best version of themselves.
so in that context, right?
Yeah.
I would look at it almost like, I make a lot of sports analogies because, that's what I do. I'm a guy. But, whenever you're talking about a team, the whole idea is, look, you focus on doing your job and trust that the other
Right. Is doing their job.
doing their job.
Right.
If you're so focused on what your teammate is doing, you can't focus on what your role and responsibility is in the scenario. But that also assumes that your teammate is doing their job, right?
It also assumes that your teammate knows what their job is.
Exactly. That your teammate knows what their job is, that your teammate was brought there with the understanding that they could do the job. All of those things are tied up in it. So
Listen, don't get you a high school player trying to get them to play pro.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to say nothing about Bronny because LeBron rolled up on Stephen A. when he made his comment. I'm not trying to get the same treatment, even though I would never be sitting courtside at the Lakers game. That ain't the way my money works. So I don't think I have that issue. But
oh my God, it will. It's coming. It's coming. It's coming.
It may come. I don't think Bron's still gonna be in the league when it gets here.
Okay, fair, but 2.0 will be here. 2.0.
It'll be Bronny, you know what I'm saying, playing with little Bronny grandkid, all of that.
No, yes. So you correct, right? We 100% we agree on that. But I think this is very layered, and that is an absolute point there, that people are aware of what role they are supposed to be playing, and I don't mean role, and I think that you would agree with this.
There you go. You about to backtrack. You about to backtrack.
No, because you getting ready to. I know you'll correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not about to backtrack. I'm about to expand. That roles don't necessarily equate to the different things that a person is doing, right? Like, who takes out the trash and who cooks dinner? No. It's this, what does each partner bring to, and again, so for me, right, this is a Christian worldview. So where I look at roles and expectations comes biblically, right? People got all their other things that they're drawing from. So when I look at it and it says, look, a man's supposed to be a leader. He's supposed to be a provider, a protector. He's supposed to be a cultivator. Yeah. He is supposed to have dominion over something, right? Something. And that women are supposed to be, and I have got into this about this idea of what a helpmate is. And so, yes, helpmate is a much broader term than just that word helpmate, right? It's this idea of being an ally, of being an advocate, an empowerer, a warrior, of being a value add in that way. And it doesn't mean subservient. It doesn't mean, second fiddle to the side in the corner till somebody tap you in. You know what I mean? Y'all lockstep. No, but you know what I mean? Seriously, like y'all lockstep. And so, but what each person is embracing for some crazy reason, we have gotten into this place where we are villainizing like what the other person does or is supposed to do, right? Yeah. A man being a leader and decisive and lead, whatever, somehow that's become labeled toxic, which I like, okay. And then somehow a woman being empowering a man and being supportive of that. And, all that's considered weak. And I'm like, how is bringing out the best in somebody else so that we can all win? How is that weak? That's literally what leadership is.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So how is being an ally, somebody who is a warrior and helping to get out here to fight the good fight with the gifts and the talents and the skills that you bring?
Yeah.
How is that weakness? But we've been somehow.
Yeah. It's not. And, you know, unfortunately for me, I kind of compare a lot of stuff to sports, but also compare it to leading organizations, leading companies, or, you know, for me, you know, leading government offices and operations. And so I've had dozens of deputies and individuals who on the hierarchy, you know, reported to me. But hopefully if you spoke to any of them, they would not feel they were subservient
Right.
to
Right.
me, or that I had them in a corner and tapped them in when it was, you know, whatever explanation, the example you gave was.
Tapped them in when it was time to put the dishes away.
Yeah, you know, like I would hope that
Right.
none of them would view, and I don't think any of them would view our relationship in that capacity. You know, I learned from a guy named Tom Carper that when you put your team together, if you're the smartest person in the room, you need to find a different room.
Right.
And, you know, I can honestly say that every single organization that I've had, my deputy, my number two, the person who was right there alongside me, was always, you know, far more, just as competent as, you know, I was myself.
Right.
And that made me a better leader.
Absolutely.
In that capacity. Now, they had a role. It wasn't some free flowing thing where one day you do this and the next day you do that.
Right.
And we're
clear.
do it as it comes.
We are clear.
Everybody has a role of what they do, and it may be based on what they do best.
Right.
It may be based on what's needed at the moment,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. But, you know, this idea that is just supposed to be this free flowing thing where everybody's stepping on each other's toes and everyone's doing everything and nobody has a set outline of things that are theirs to do, that has never operated well on a sport,
Of
on
course.
a field of sports.
Right.
It's never operated well in an organizational structure, and it's never operated well in a marriage.
Right. Right.
And it's for a couple of reasons. One, having an outline of things that you focus on does a couple of things. One, it gives you ownership over something. And so you feel incredibly connected to the team's success.
Right.
Because, and that's incredibly important in any organization.
Right.
Whether you're talking about
their mission and the vision. Yes.
The mission and the vision, whether you're talking about a family, whether you're talking about an organizational structure, whether you're talking about a team. So on a team, you may not be the one scoring 40 a night, but you're getting 7 rebounds.
Right.
And
right.
that's your job. Your job is to get the rebounds so that, you know, we can change the possession, or so that we can keep our possession going, and you can get the ball in the hands of the guy or gal who's dropping 30.
Right.
And so your responsibility is incredibly tied to the team's ultimate goal. You know, same thing in an organization. You know, you may not have the responsibility to make the final decision, but you have the responsibility of building the argument for the individual who has to make the final decision.
Right.
And you've got significant power in that regard.
Absolutely.
Influence in that regard, because, you know, as you design I can't tell you how many times I've made a final decision solely based on my number two's presentation,
advice
on which direction we should be going. Now, ultimately, it was my final call and my final decision, but, you know, to pull that person out of the organizational structure would be maddening. Like I would have to do all of that myself, as well as weigh all the pros and cons of the decisions that have to be made. And so everybody's got a role. And the other piece about having a role, you know, specialized roles in operations, is that you can narrowly focus on these things and become great at them.
Right. Right. Amazing.
whereas
Effective.
if you're doing everything, you'll
You're doing
never
nothing well.
you'll never do anything well
Right.
because
Too many balls are dropped.
you're too busy doing everything.
Yeah.
So if, you know, and I'm just using this as an example, so don't attack me when I say it. If, you know,
Not,
seriously,
not attack
like,
you.
no, but I'm saying like if your job is to, you know, handle household finances,
Uh-huh.
that's your job. You
Right.
paying the bills,
Right.
you know, it may be a joint account or whatever,
Right.
but you know, actually you're the one
That's
who's
doing the physical.
doing the physical work
Yeah.
of making sure that everything gets done
Right.
in a timely
It
manner.
was maybe appropriate. I may be better at math, but go
You
ahead.
may be better at that,
I
right?
may be, yes, correct. Go
So
ahead.
so that's your thing. That's
Uh-huh.
what you do.
Right.
And you know all the dates of when stuff is due. You know all the dates of when you need to pay things off with a credit card to make sure that the credit score stays high.
Right.
You know all of the, you know, investments and what you guys are doing, and you have specialized in that, and you are great at it.
Right.
Because that has
I mean, I did go to a financial university, so this is
that
not.
has been what you
Go ahead. Go
focus on.
ahead.
You're great at that. Now, if I jump in and say
Right.
I'm not that great at those things,
Right.
and I want to do some of it too, you know, because I don't believe in everybody having a role.
It's
I
crazy
want
one.
to do some of it too. I'm not as good at it.
Right.
I haven't spent as much time with it. You
And now
know,
we got anarchy.
I only do it every couple of months instead of every month.
Right.
And I don't know all of these things. And so it's not to say that I may not do it as well
Right.
as you. If your job is to cook, if what you do is you cook in the household, I would much rather eat a meal from somebody who out here cooking regularly,
Prepared deliciously.
prepared deliciously, than, well, some days he come in and cook and I'm burning up the tacos, and then some days she cook and then it's great, and then the kid's mad because when dad cook, then it's trash, or when mom cooks it's trash, but when dad cooks it's good. Like,
Right.
ain't nobody
Right.
winning like
Right.
that.
I think, listen, and
and then also from, you know, stuff that's traditionally considered a male thing,
yeah.
if it's a bump in the night, you know, if I know that I've been doing all the jujitsu classes and I've been doing all the trigger tai chi classes.
Is that even a thing?
And trigger tai chi, yeah, it's a thing,
Oh.
you know. But
All
you
right.
know, if I'm
listen.
doing all of those,
I'm fact checking you.
if I'm doing all of those defense stuff to protect my household and family, it would look crazy if I'm like, well, sometimes if it's a bump in the night, she go deal with it. Sometimes I go see what's happening. No, like, this is what you supposedly are good at.
Look, wait a minute, babe. It's your turn.
Yeah, right. Dude, wake up like, babe, I went last time.
It's your turn.
Your turn now. Like, no, that ain't how it operates. So this mentality that everybody has, that all of a sudden roles are a bad thing.
Yeah.
You know,
but I think truly people are saying that because for whatever reason we have tied a negativity to that role.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To say that this role is weak and this role is like it. There's always these ideas placed on them, and it's like, wait a minute, different does not mean bad. Nor does it mean good. It just means different.
And I think
there's a space for different. They're different for a reason. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a need for the other person.
Right.
If I could do everything in and of myself, I don't need nobody else. And it's the same thing so there's a reason that there's a gap that exists. Yeah. And I have a gap, you have a gap. Together, we fill the gap.
I think a part of it is this gender stuff that's been going back and forth, where we've devalued the things that traditionally
that come naturally.
You said that traditionally,
and I say it again. You want me to say it again?
You can say it. It's your podcast.
It's my podcast.
It's your platform. But that traditionally have been male roles and women's roles, and we've devalued the roles that were women's roles.
Right.
And so, you know, things that were traditionally women's roles now people look at as subservient.
Can I just say something right here real quick? Yeah. And you ain't got to, because I'm not gonna get you canceled. I might get myself canceled, but I'm okay. Like, right, when we're talking about that, see, one of the things that were traditionally women's roles were being a primary caregiver parent with children when they were young, right? Because I'm also, let me also say this: we have devalued the importance of fatherhood, and we can get into that in a second. But traditionally speaking, women in their formative years, when children are forming sort of like this awareness about their environment
Mm-hmm.
and feeling safe and loved and nurtured and sort of having those emotional needs met,
Mm-hmm.
which is what moms are really good at,
Yeah.
right? That removing moms being now outside of the home and that being turned over to teachers or educate, which is no shit, to teachers, but they got 30 kids.
Mm-hmm.
That I think we are seeing the effects,
Yeah.
right, of these kids and the results of them not having that environment.
Yeah.
Is extremely beneficial, and it is not weak. It
Right.
is one of the most powerful, again, empowering things that a woman, a mother, can do for her children.
Mm-hmm.
And then, come dad later on, right? Dads give identity. I think dads give a sense of boundaries and values and protection that we have not traditionally put a lot of value and emphasis on, but we also we see in the results of that too.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that men have been like excluded in a lot of ways from the lives of their children, and it
Mm-hmm.
shows
Yeah.
because kids out here don't know who they are, got
Mm-hmm.
no boundaries, wilding out, doing all the things, and then everybody go, "Where are they dead?"
Yeah, and it's a legit question. Where is Pops? It's a legit question. Where's Pops?
No, it is a legit question, but I'm just
Yeah.
saying, I'm just
Yeah.
throwing that out there.
I think there has been a level of devaluing some of those things that were traditionally, things that women focused that were things that women focused on. I don't know how much. I'd have to look at the data to see how much of it is because women are working more outside the household. I feel like in Black communities, women were always working. Like I don't remember the era where it was the Black Waltons and
I can't with you. Okay,
Mama Black Walton was just in the house,
but we also had more community.
pillows.
Listen, we also had more community. We
We
also
did. We
had
had more
so
community.
so let's be like right. So to go because taking it all the way back to the beginning, where marriages are important, right? So marriage is not just important for the man and the woman that are in it.
Yeah.
It's important for the children, but it's also important for the community. When
Yeah.
we had families took care of each other. So
Mm-hmm.
yes, I agree that maybe people were working outside the home, but when it's just the two of y'all and these two kids,
Yeah.
and you ain't got no village to help
You got
you,
grandma and grandpa and
your
all.
neighbors, the woman down the street who's like, "Hey, keep it together."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When you don't got all these mentors,
It has incredibly become one of those things where we devalue some of those things that did make families strong.
right?
One of that is the power of moms and dads and the different things that they bring to the table in a family. The other thing is the importance of those external family members, the grandmas, the granddads, the uncles, and all those other things that, definitely add a safety net
Right.
for those kids in the family structure and the community in and of itself, the neighbors, the basketball coaches and the football coaches and the preachers and
Right.
all the other stuff when they act right. And you know,
That's gonna be another podcast.
yeah,
Remember,
I think we have devalued those things throughout time. But just going back to the roles in the household, uh, I don't think that we should devalue the ability to, for example, cook for your family.
right?
You're the number one source of illness, number one source of
Nutrition,
problems associated with obesity, with a child's ability to grow and develop and learn, are directly tied to the things that they're putting in their body.
right?
And, to devalue that as servitude or slavery,
Right.
devalues
It's
the
crazy
impact that
work, right?
it devalues the
It's
impact that it has on your family, and the importance of it. And so, when
so
I hear
so
people say, well, I'll just farm that out, we could just hire a cook to come in and cook for us, you know, it's one of those things where it's like we're trying to farm out those things that mean a lot to a child's development,
Yeah.
and boiling it down to, oh, well, that's subservience, that's slavery. How is cleanliness in a home that's yours, subservience, or, making a meal subservience? How is a guy who goes out and works hard to make a living for his family, he turns around and says he feels like a slave because he's working all day and yada yada? It's like, no, dude, like, this is what you're supposed to
Belongs
do.
to you. This
This
belongs to
belongs to
you.
you, and this is what's necessary for the family. And I think somewhere along the lines, we
Because
started to take those responsibilities and boil them down to subservience
you know
and
why? Because
slavery, or
because we are getting married with the goal of being served. That's
Mhm,
why we're
mhm,
coming into marriage with the
mhm,
goal of being served. And so when
mhm,
somebody is asking you to contribute and for you to provide service,
mhm.
now you a slave. Now
Right,
somebody's oppressing you.
right.
Now somebody, and it's like, wait a minute, what? Like, what did you
We're
think this?
all in the service business. Once we get married,
Exactly. If
we
you
are
didn't
all
come
in the
into this
service industry.
marriage, if you didn't come into this marriage with a servant leadership heart, then you are already out of
And for the
pocket.
wrong
Like that's
reason.
ridiculous.
And that
So
goes back. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no. I was just gonna say, like, we got a lot of prima donnas walking around, but
Yeah.
that's the part about the fairy tale, right? Like, for on the women's standpoint, on the side of things, it's like he's gonna be this Prince Charming who's going to make every one of my dreams come true. I just gotta show up and be pretty,
Yeah.
and he gonna take care of everything else. No, ma'am, you got work to do.
Yeah.
Like, you got work to do. Or, the same on the flip side of that,
Or the guy who's laying around and expecting that, shorty gonna make him 8 meals a day and he don't have to
he
do
don't gotta do
anything.
nothing.
He
Or that
just
he
lay
gets to go out
around.
and do whatever he want to do, and she not gonna say nothing.
Exactly.
Either fairy tales that do not exist. Stop it.
That don't exist. But I think to your point that you brought up before, and I'm gonna go back to one of the questions that you asked before. Do people see value in
Married.
marriage now? And I think going back to what that question was with this in context, it's hard to see value in something if you are coming at it from a perspective that all the value is wrapped up in what I get out of it.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
so, if you're going into a service industry, which is marriage,
Mm-hmm.
and you're looking at it for the things that you're going to get out of it. I need this list of all of the stuff that I'm going to get from this without having to give anything myself. Now, again, that's not to say that marriage doesn't provide you with things.
Right.
But without the context of what I have to give in that dynamic, then no, you're not going to see the value in it.
Right. Right.
Because, if you're not going into it thinking about it from the standpoint of what I can get out of it, what I can give into it, what I can give to this person, what I can give to the world by producing some amazing children. If you're not thinking about it from that context, then no. And I think society.
I'm glad you said that. I'm about to.
I mean, I think.
No. I'm like, go ahead, because I'm getting ready to say something next. Go ahead.
Because I think society has kind of, I was talking to somebody some time ago, and they brought up a really good point that, society just tells women that they need to get married because it gives them status,
Yep.
clout,
Gives them an identity.
an identity to say that I'm somebody's wife.
Yep.
Right?
Validates them. Validates
that validation of being someone's wife.
Yeah.
And if that's the motivation that, people have, is what society will now say about me because I've got this ring, then you're going into it for the wrong reason.
Oh, 100%.
Because,
100%.
because
But look, wait a minute. Before you get too far off course, because I mean, like down the street, I want to circle back for a second, because you said talking about the value, right? And that if you're not coming in with a heart of service, if you're not coming in right, then you don't see that. So is that the problem with men and why they're not getting? We go bring all of that. Is that a part of the problem?
Well,
that men are struggling. That men are struggling to see that the reason that marriage seems unattractive is because somewhere there's a realization that I got to serve, and they don't want to.
So one thing that I want to do is I want to step back from the women who's afraid. Like, we all in this crap together. Like,
Oh, yeah.
we all coming to
This
the
is not
table.
shade to any, you know what I
No,
mean?
no, no, no. I know it wasn't. I know it wasn't. So what I would say to that is, yeah, I think there's a lot of guys who don't see the value in what this modern idea of marriage has become.
Mhm.
You know, and if it's any guys that's out there in the dating scene, you absolutely know that you've met women who seem like they're more focused on they want to be married versus they want to marry you.
Correct. Plug and play. Any man will do.
Any man will do.
Any man will do.
You hit these little check marks, you know,
Not little
you
check marks.
little big check marks, little check marks.
Listen, he's 6'5".
You know,
He making
got
six
his own
figures.
place,
He
you
got
know,
his own place. He cute.
you
He a
know,
Kappa.
stop. So, so, so you hit these little check marks, and it's like, okay, he will do.
Uh-huh.
And guys get that vibe. Like, guys get that feeling of she just thinks I'll do. She's more focused on being married than she is on marrying me
Right.
specifically. And I know that that doesn't last. Like,
Right.
you know, the novelty of that wears off. And I'm scared to get into that type of scenario. And so this idea that, yeah, I think, and then on the flip side, you know, guys who look at it like, you know, they're looking for the woman who is the drop dead, gorgeous 10, who, you
I mean,
know, just
basically
wants,
me. They're looking for me. Go
which
ahead.
is that wants nothing more than to serve them and
Oh, not that part.
don't even want anything in return. You know, and if she don't meet that standard, then I ain't never getting married. Like, you got that brother out there.
Right.
But I
Right.
think the vast majority of those guys that you're talking now, let's be clear. Let's be clear. Not all guys are going to be in this space, because another thing that you recognize is, you know, there's a segment of guys that women are just not interested in marrying or being with.
So here we go. Here we
It's being
go.
real. Like, it's,
I know you was gonna go there. I knew you was
you
gonna
know,
go
all
there.
of the stuff that we see in articles and in reports about the incel communities, and you know,
Look, you're not wrong. I literally just talked about this in the last episode about the small window of bubble women they dating, you know, side.
so it's hard to
Yeah,
classify to say that
yeah.
all men aren't looking for marriage, because there is a segment of men who are, and they're just, you know, they're either
Outside of
never,
what seems viable.
they're outside of what seems viable,
Yeah.
you know, based on today's standards. You know, they may not have the height, they may not have the job or the, you know, career. They may have things that they need to work on themselves that they're not really ready to work on.
Yeah.
Um, you know, and then you may have a smaller population of guys who do have all those things, who truly don't see a value in marriage because they have all of those things, and there's an abundance of women who are in their, you know, space, and you know,
Well, yes,
they
it is
don't really feel the same motivation
to lock
to
it in.
lock somebody in, because there is no scarcity mentality
Right. Right.
that
I get
they're,
that. Look, and that
it's
comes back to what we was talking about in the beginning, right? This idea of having a standard for yourself.
yeah,
In my estimation, right? So yeah, just because you can have 9 million options doesn't mean that you need to exercise 9 million of them.
it takes
You can
discipline. It
1000%. It
takes
takes
discipline.
absolute discipline. And that's
Yeah.
something that I think that we as a society, I'm not even going to put that just on men.
Right.
We as a society are struggling with. So to that point, this is something that I want to bring up, because I think this is the perfect time. I've talked to you about this idea of, as men go, so does society go, right? That men are very foundational, and that when men draw boundaries, when men are strong leaders, when men are holding communities get right, society gets in line.
Yes.
And so now when we look at society right now and we wow. Society is wow.
Wow it out.
Listen, crashing out.
Wilding out,
We
crashing,
are,
going over
man,
the cliff like Thelma and Louise, but not
listen,
holding hands.
I don't even know what this insurance claim is looking like. That's how wild we are.
We can't get insured.
We can't get insurance.
Get insured as a society because we are too wild
It's
right
too
now.
much. The liability is too great. Okay,
Great.
so that says something about where men are then, right?
Mhm.
If we can agree that men drive the things, this is where we are.
I think, yeah.
So here's my question with this, because that's very layered. I get it. It's not a one sort of lane conversation there. There's a lot of things that go into it. But I do want to ask this question concerning that, because again, there are benefits to marriage. Yeah. There are, we laid out, when things are operating great, it's emotionally amazing, right? Mm-hmm. It's the safest place to be. Mm-hmm. It is legacy, right? It's the the healthiest for your kids. It's community building. It's generational wealth. Like, right. So when it's working, it's amazing.
Yes.
So if men can recognize and understand that, and they can recognize and understand that they drive the things, why are men not being, if some of the things are women, I'm just not finding women that I think are viable partners, or like whatever the issue is. Right. Why are men not doing, and I know this is a very broad question, so just, forgive me for that. Doing a better job at sort of essentially cultivating, because again, going back to, this is part of what their role is, cultivating what they want. So right now, women are wild because that's what men want, or at least that's what they say they want, right? Like, that's what draws the attention. That's what draws the things, right? So I'm gonna lay out here with, 2 little inches of clothes on because 30 men gonna be in my DMs. But if I sit here with, covered up, dry, phone is dry. So, but if men don't want to marry the chick with with her cheeks out, if men don't want to go to dinner with the chick that's asking him to pay her rent or to put her on his credit or whatever the case is, then why are you cultivating those types of women? Why are you entertaining them?
So what I would say to that is, again, I just look back in history, and there have always been scantily clad women.
But they were on the outsides of society.
But I'll get to that.
Okay.
But men have always gravitated towards the brothels, the late night, things. These things have always existed in society.
Right.
And so their mere existence alone, has not necessarily been the problem. I think the problem is that there are not enough men who are standing up for morality. There are not enough men out here today who feel comfortable standing up for values. Mm-hmm. And what that does is it leaves the microphone available to, guys on social media in the comment sections. And you begin to believe that those voices represent
the voices
of men, but they represent the voices of the men who've always been here, but have never had the microphone. Yeah. And I think a part of that is because, we in this cancel culture right now where it's a lot of guys who feel like, look, I'm not going to get out here and start being preachy about this morality thing. If they want to listen to Sexy Red, go on and listen to it and go ahead and promote her. And all of these other folks who, are
we never get better. We never get
this trash. And what it's done is, that extracting ourselves from the moral conversation has led to this environment where, it's a vacuum in that level of leadership.
Right.
and we can't be shocked and surprised when in that vacuum people resort to their base,
Nate.
nature. And so, I put that squarely on the shoulders of men,
Mm-hmm.
in society, that we have allowed our microphones to be silenced, and to silence our own microphones because we're nervous about what someone's going to say when we say, why on earth is she dressed like that?
Right.
Or
Right.
why on earth is this brother giving her the time of day, seeing how she's carrying herself? Or why is this brother carrying himself in this manner? And why
To
is
that
he,
part. Come on, holding each
carrying
other
himself
accountable.
like this and holding him accountable for his
Yeah.
actions?
Right.
And, it's really turned into more of a individualistic society where it's like, look, you do you, I'm going to do me.
Right.
And I'm no longer connected to what you do and how you present yourself because you're not mine. And so if you want to operate in this wild way, that's on you. I'm gonna operate the way that I see fit.
Yeah.
And so then when you come talk to a guy like me who's, you know, would never bring that type of person around my mama,
Right.
um, it's like shocking because it's
Right.
like, I thought you guys love this.
Right.
And it's like, no, the guys that you are looking at in social media or in the comment section in IG, they are the ones who are giving this stuff the time of day. And
But
even if
okay, but
guys are,
Saran, can I put
and even if guys are looking, we've elevated the idea of attention
yeah. Right.
to
Right.
to
Right.
to being the primary goal. And not all attention is good attention. Like the
Right.
woman on the pole has always gotten attention. That's why
Right.
she's on the stage. It's
Right.
elevated so
Right.
you can see her, so she can have attention. But
Right.
that is never meant throughout the history of time that
Let me say,
that
can I
was
just say this?
preferred.
Let me just say this. And I hear what you're saying. And I appreciate that because that's honest, right? That's honest and that's real. And I think it's something to be, I think it's a challenge to men, right? Good men who have morals and values, who are absolutely agree with everything that you are saying. I would put this forth to them that there are women out there who are trying to hold a standard, who are trying to be, and I don't want to say women of value because Lord, I hate that term. I'm so sick of hearing it. But trying to be women of like a moral, right? Like they're trying to have a certain level of decency about themselves and all those other kind of things. And it feels lonely, right? It feels like um a fruitless existence. You and I have had this conversation.
Yeah.
It feels like a fruitless existence that for what? To what end? What is this going to gain me? No one is checking for the chick that's trying to hold a standard. And you're saying absolutely, but it's like, where are they? They're not standing up. They're not standing up and
Exactly.
saying that.
But you stand on your morals and values not because you expect to get something back.
100%.
And so
100%. But listen, 100%. I'm saying this is a call out to men.
yeah.
As a woman, I'm saying, and a woman who's trying to hold a standard, this is a call out to men to say, your covering, your protection, your love, your validation, your acknowledgement,
Mm-hmm.
or your choosing
Mm-hmm.
in that area would do wonderful, like amazing, life-changing things for women who'd like to know that this does matter, that it is seen and it is valued. That's my point. Yeah, you're going to keep rocking and doing it, but I'm saying it would be nice. It would be nice if somebody was like that. That's that, right?
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying is that if
No,
men,
you absolutely right. I think, the hard part is, what does that look like?
yeah,
Because again, I think so much of what we do is through the prism of social media.
yeah.
And every time I
Did
get
you
somebody,
watch my video I just posted yesterday?
nah, I ain't seen it yet.
It said I said I'm not being in a harem. How I feel about that. That was my video. I'm not
I don't
doing
like
it.
your phrasing of the word
Things I'm
harem.
not doing is being
I
in a
don't,
harem.
it's you making hair. I'm not gonna get into it. I'm not gonna get into it. You got it. You got your.
Watch the video. We'll talk later.
All right, I'm gonna watch. But no, I just think a lot of stuff is viewed through this lens of social media, man. Like you'd be surprised how many people will send me something that's complete trash,
Yeah.
and I'll say like that's trash. Like who would want that person
Yeah.
around their kids?
Right.
And they'll be like, look at the comments. All of the guys in there loving it. And it's like some dude in his mom's basement, like with Cheeto stains on his fingers, like that you wouldn't give the time of day to, who's on some IG model's page talking
Talking
about, little girl,
crazy.
I'ma marry you. You really think that represents the type of man that you want?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. I just want the type of man that I do want to stand up and be like, nah. And actually, and here's the other thing. Here's the other thing.
And that's
And
the
here's
hard
the, that's right. But also the type of man that I would want, which again circles back to the very beginning of this conversation, because a lot of those men that we would want are the very men that are shying away from relationships and marriage.
Yeah.
And that's the part, right? So there's a lot of nutballs out here that are getting married every day doing nonsense, or being in relationships doing nonsense, right? Yeah. And I say relationships, and I put that in quotes because relationships is a real fluid, description for what they doing. But the ones that we are truly rocking with that do have this standard are choosing to opt out, and it's like, sir, we need you. Like this, that's the part, right? That's what I'm saying. It's like that's the part.
And I think we've kind of, again, this goes back to kind of separating ourselves from community. And I really think that's really a something that's a Western type of
mentality,
like this individualistic,
yeah.
You do you, I'ma do me, we're not connected type of a thing, which makes it very easy to see those types of behaviors and say, that ain't me, hey, but y'all go do you.
Yeah.
And to not criticize or critique it, or, to be clear that this ain't it.
Right.
And
as a community, we draw boundaries around that and be like, no.
As a community, we end up drawing boundaries around those things. But also you got to recognize that when you draw boundaries around those things, people not going to like it. And it's almost like you have to accept.
Listen, and
there's people who not going to like it.
Facts.
And people who not going to want to be a part of that community. Now, I do think that society is more sympathetic to, and society, media, all these folks are more sympathetic to the folks who don't want anything to do with that morally upright stuff.
Right.
And so they will promote the trash.
Yeah. What's the money?
And then attack the people who say that's trash.
Right. Right. It's for somebody benefits from you being immoral, in lust, greedy. Like people benefit from that. So yeah,
absolutely.
Of course.
And sometimes it be the most pro-Black people out there who be on the side of the huge media conglomerates who want you to be as ratchet as you possibly can, and look at it as a moneymaker.
Oh yeah.
And you, Mr. or Mrs. Pro-Black, are just feeding them with exactly what it is that they want to see from you and yours.
Right.
And you're doing it in a way that says that's supposed to be empowering. And supposed to be uplifting to whom? Right. It's only empowering to the people who making money off of you.
Listen, I heard there was a Christian artist, and his whole, I'm gonna tell you what the name of the song is. I can't think of it right now, but he had a line that said, like, how else you gonna get people to essentially like kill themselves? You do it by giving them the freedom to. Right, like it's this. Like you make them believe, oh, you got the freedom, and then they do with the thing. I said, yo, that's
dope. Like, because people have intrinsically separated freedom from responsibility.
Yeah,
and the more freedom you have, the more responsibility.
Right. It's not the other way around.
It's not the other way around, right? Like
People want all the freedom and no
and
responsibility.
zero responsibility,
Yeah, it makes no sense.
as though freedom itself is, separate from responsibility.
It
Freedom
costs.
without responsibility is anarchy.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
with all of this great freedom that we've developed as a people, as women, as Black men, we've seen greater freedoms than our ancestors
Yeah.
have, but with fewer responsibilities.
Right.
And it's leading us into a path of anarchy. And if we're not committed ourselves to reintroducing responsibility to the equation, the freedom in and of itself becomes its own prison.
That was just getting ready to say, becomes the chokehold. It's the thing that's going to kill you.
Right.
Like, yeah, you're going to choke on it.
Exactly.
Choke on it. I do want to ask you one. I know this is good. I just want to pivot just a little bit because I'm interested in hearing this perspective from you as well, about, one of the things that we think about sort of traditionally, and again, I get it. Everybody's not a monolith, but this idea of women being more sort of emotionally nurturing, right? And that being a strength that they bring to marriage and relationships. And women generally do tend to be, more emotionally intelligent, more verbose, right, about their feelings and their thoughts, and being able to sort of articulate that and all the things. And yet, for some reason, they are failing to. At least it sounds like to me, and again, I know you'll correct me if I'm wrong. It sounds like a lot of men feel like women are not connecting to their emotions and their emotional needs and seeing them accurately. And I guess I'm curious as to what is it that women should know about this men's emotional needs that women are not seeing, that they're not, right? Does that that question make sense?
No, it makes sense. First, let's be clear. Just because someone is more emotional doesn't mean they're more emotionally intelligent. Like,
he said, just because you over there crying don't mean that
you're in touch with your emotions. Like,
you just emotional.
Yeah, you can be emotional and not in touch with your emotions. You can be emotional and have zero control over your emotions.
I feel attacked.
You're saying, you know what I mean? Like, the act of crying doesn't mean you're emotionally intelligent.
Facts.
Facts. Or more emotionally intelligent than the person that's not crying.
Right. Right.
And so, for one, I will say that men, it's not necessarily that men aren't intrinsically emotionally intelligent. It's just that men have been taught more than most that they have to control their emotions,
right,
in ways that women have not been taught.
Right.
And so when you say that women are typically taught it's okay to cry and all the other things, that doesn't make them in touch. That doesn't mean that they're emotionally stable. It just
correct.
means, or that they're emotionally intelligent. It just means they have been raised in a way where it is accepted that it's okay for you to be emotional.
Okay, so can I just clarify again?
In ways that guys have not necessarily been taught. We've been taught that in order for us to lead, the primary thing that you have to be able to do is control your emotions. That doesn't necessarily mean that you are numb to them. It does not necessarily mean that you shouldn't have them. It means none of those things. It means that you should learn how to control them, so that you have the space to lead. There was a scene in the movie Saving Private Ryan, which, if you ain't seen that movie,
I have.
One of my top 10 movies of all time. And I ain't seen it in a little while, so if I mess up the scene, don't attack me. But, Tom Hanks was the leader of this team that was responsible for going and getting Private Ryan. I think it was played by Matt Damon. And, he was losing soldiers. He was getting bad information from his
Right.
leadership and all these things. And there was a scene where he went away from everybody and just cried
Right.
for a moment, just cried,
Mhm.
got himself together and went back to lead his troops.
Right.
And so that's kind of how you're trained to be. It wasn't that he was ashamed of his feelings. It wasn't that he didn't have feelings. It wasn't that, he couldn't cry as a man. It was go cry, be emotional, understand that what you're dealing with is an incredibly traumatic experience,
Mm-hmm.
but none of that should prevent you from leading these guys
Right.
to the objective.
Right.
And so I think what women should understand about men is that it's not necessarily that we have been taught not to have emotions. It's not necessarily that we don't have emotions. It's that we have been taught in ways to separate our emotions from the goal and the agenda.
Okay.
And some guys don't do it well.
Right.
Some guys do it like, I'm just going to suppress these emotions. I'm
Right.
never going to acknowledge them so that I can lead. And that's a recipe for disaster. There's some guys who've been taught, no, don't have any emotions. And because in a lot of ways, they have not had true men in their lives to really explain to them the nuance of being able to be a leader in an emotional world and being emotional while still being able to put that aside so that it doesn't cloud your judgment.
So I good, which this is good, right? This is good because so there's a few things that I want to say here. One, I heard a man, I don't even remember when, but he said the thing of just because a man doesn't present like he has emotions, treat him like he does, because he does. And which I think is basically what you're saying.
Exactly.
It's because it's not just because the display of emotion is not the same as a woman's may be, doesn't mean that they do not exist in him. And that's the part about being different, not being good or bad, not saying that a woman's way is the right way or a man's way is the right way. It's just to say they're different. But the reality is that both are emotional beings and there needs to be room left for that. So I think that that's really good. And I'm glad that you call that out. It's interesting about that because to that point, right? When I said that women tend to be more emotionally intelligent, I guess, and I thank you for the boundary around that. You're right. It doesn't mean that they are actually intelligent around it. I guess what I was attempting to say was that they tend to be more comfortable with their emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So maybe that's a better way of framing that they tend to be more comfortable in talking about them, in displaying them, in, admitting that they have them, right? There's just a level of vulnerability that exists with women that tends to be more embracing of emotions. And to your point that has been made to be okay. So to the thing here though, both men and women are logical thinkers. Both are emotional as well. Yep. But our brains are different, right? And so women, their limbic system, their emotional system is bigger than in a man's, right? And tends to lead first. And so an event or a thing happens and a woman immediately has a feeling about it. And then after some time, she has a thought about it, right? I feel something. Now, what do I think about this? Where a man is the exact opposite. He has a thought about something and then he has an emotion about it. And so it's not that either of them are lacking in the other. It's just what sort of comes first. Right. And so to that point, sometimes the communication with that can be, because women will do things like, how do you feel about this? And he's like, I don't know, right? And and then she gets mad. Right? She gets mad. Like, what do you mean you don't know how you feel? And what if, like, it's not that hard? What do you mean? Like, are you happy? Are you sad? Do you like it? Do you not? He's like, I don't, because he's still in the thinking stage. Yeah. Like, he's still having a thought about it. Yeah. And then he'll have an emotion about it. And so I think what women need to learn to do is to act, and you and I had this conversation too, right? Asking the right questions to get the information you're trying to get versus what you're actually receiving. And so a woman doing better at saying, what do you think about this? Because as he's telling you what he thinks, the feeling will come along with it. I think this or that. And then and that's wild. And that's this or that's whatever. Versus on the flip side, a man asking a woman, what does she think about it? And she's like, I don't know. I just, right. Instead, how you feel about this? And then as she talks through, and you and I have had literally had this very thing, this conversation where I have expressed my feelings about something. And as we talk more through it, now I'm like, and this is now I understand what I think about it because I process my emotion. Right. And so, right. But leaving grace and room and space for that process to happen. And again, not making somebody a villain or saying that somebody is, emotionally immature or, whatever.
Right.
Because they process differently.
Well, I think I think some of it is that we've had, society has had this men and women are the same thing going on so long that it just defies science and experience. reality. Like, different ain't better or worse.
Right.
But men process things differently. Women process things differently because we have different experiences. You have experiences that I will never have.
Yeah.
Being in the world as a woman, which shapes how you process information.
Right.
I've had experiences as a man that
I will never have.
You will never have as a woman, which helps me to process information differently. We're taught differently as men and women. People show up to us differently as men and women. And so that doesn't necessarily mean that one is bad, one is good. It just means we have to get a better understanding of what those experiences are and how they shape how we think and process information if we're going to be a great team in a community together as men and as women who are part of that. To your point, it's no surprise in society that women feel more comfortable sharing their emotions because in some cases, in a lot of cases, there isn't necessarily a huge downside to a woman showing her emotion in society.
Right.
I mean, obviously, it's a time and place. Like, I don't think that's to say that women are just breaking.
Nobody's gonna talk crazy about you. They ain't gonna call you.
I'm sure,
whatever.
Obviously, I leave space for the work environment because nobody's saying that people just breaking down, crying, doing presentations is ever a good thing. But for the most part, women aren't necessarily maligned in the same way that men are when it comes to being vulnerable and things of that nature. And so it's no surprise that women would be more comfortable in the society showing their emotions because it ain't necessarily a level of penalty that they receive for being emotional. Now, obviously, I leave space for spaces of leadership and spaces where, you're running for president and you break down crying, and whether you're a man or a woman, they're going to attack you for it. Or if you're, immediately, or if you're in a corporate space and you break down crying during a presentation or a negotiation, regardless if you're a man.
If you're an attorney, that might be awkward.
You're an attorney and obviously I leave space for those environments, but a man breaking down crying when the police pull him over versus a woman breaking down crying when the police pull her over, it's going to be a different response.
Right.
And so, to an extent, a man breaking down crying in front of a woman, it doesn't really go the same way as it does if a woman breaks down crying in front of a man.
Yeah.
So, it's no surprise that they're more comfortable. Now, I'm not saying that we should be now more comfortable with men.
No, but
not having control
that they do need space to be able to do it, and I think that that's the part where women can show up.
But I think for guys, man, I think it is important that guys be able to control their emotions, which is different to say that don't have them. And I would always preach to guys that you have to control your emotions. And emotions isn't always crying.
Right.
Emotions is
anger.
also anger.
Yep.
You know, emotions are also joy.
Right.
You know, emotions are a myriad of feelings
Right.
that you can have that as a man, you have to control them. I'm a huge black dude. I'm a mammoth human being.
I
Okay.
can't with you right now. I can't with you.
I was taught very young by my dad. Had father in my life, always been in my life, has always been in my life, still in my life.
Yeah.
Who from the time that I was a kid explained to me the importance of managing my anger.
Right.
Who explained to me the importance of it from the context of a black man, that you don't have the ability to spaz out. That's not something that you were born with, my child. You were not born with the freedom to walk around.
That's not your privilege. That's not
your ministry, son. You were not born with the privilege to just get pissed off in a store
and start flipping tables.
And start
knocking chips off the shelf. Don't do it. Please don't do it.
You were not blessed with that, my child. So you will have to learn to control your emotions.
Right.
In order to walk in this world. You can't just go out and start yelling.
Right.
And start, getting upset with someone, because they will shoot you. They're not going to try to restrain you.
Listen, among other things, right?
You're not going to restrain you. They're not going to try to talk you down.
Yeah.
They're going to call the police, and the police going to
show
up and they're going to look up, and they're going to see you.
It's going to be a whole problem.
It's going to be a little officer who show up and look at you, and he not even going to
make him little like that. Don't make him little like that. We don't know.
He not even going to think. And he going to address you in a way that protects his safety first.
Right. Which is understood. Listen.
Which I'm not, look, mind you.
Totally understandable.
It was never a scenario where he was maligning the other person.
Right. He was just being real about who you are.
He's just being real about who I am.
Right.
And that played its way into conversations that we had about how I dressed when I left the house.
Right.
So now it's gone from managing my emotions to managing how I present myself.
Right.
Like all of my homies.
That's why dads are important. Side note.
Why dads are important, because my mother never gave me this message.
Right.
Because she didn't care.
Right.
Because she couldn't look at it from this perspective.
Right.
And so, my pops was like, yo, I'm leaving the house. I got the baggy jabots on with the big Jordan UNC jersey on with the matching J's, and he's like, yo, like, with the bandana on.
Lock it up.
It was the 90s. You had a sky blue joint to match.
You was fly though. You was fly. I could see you.
Sunglasses.
In my mind's eye, I could see you.
The colorway sunglasses to match, because you had to have the sky blue joints with the bandana. And my pops was like, yo, you walking around with a blue bandana, son.
Do you see yourself?
Do you see yourself? Like, somebody going to think you banging out here.
Right.
Yeah, you wearing it like it's a music video.
Right.
You wearing it like it's a music video.
You are not a member of Jodeci or Shy or Jagged Edge or any of the above.
You're not that guy. You're going to walk out here and somebody going to see you and think that your baggy shirt is covering up a gun.
Right.
They're going to think that your all blue is representative of the fact that you in some gang.
Right.
And they're going to approach you in that way.
Now, let me say this, because what you're like, this is good, right? This is good. This perspective that you're talking about is good. The length and the intensity and the conversation, right? Because these are not, right? Women are having very different conversations surrounding those types of things than you are, right? My parents did not have, my dad did not have that conversation with me. My mom did not, right? And it wasn't very different conversations, right? cover your cheeks, right? Like that was the conversation that I was
I
getting.
never had to cover the cheek conversation with my pops. He never gave me that.
He did not. See, right? But mom was like, listen, pull your
The
shirt. Yeah,
closest thing is you need to put a belt on. The closest thing was you need to put
right?
a belt on.
But mine was like, listen, you need to cover these cheeks up. We can see you. And that's not cute. So there's that. But to that point, though, I think why I say this is good and relevant to this conversation is that men have had very constricting boundaries placed around their emotions. Mm-hmm. And so when you get into a relationship with a woman, I think whether explicitly communicated or not, there is an expectation. And again, this is me. I'm paraphrasing. You can tell me, again, if I'm right or wrong. There is an expectation that a part of the benefit for this man in this relationship with this woman is that now I can take some of those restraints off of my emotions with you. And if for whatever reason that becomes not the case, then that is like why am I even here then? Right. If I can't release some of this stuff. Right. And so what women need to be sort of cued in on is that is of huge value. To be an emotional safe space to a man is of huge value. So, because women want to be leading with stuff like her degrees, the amount of money she makes, how many houses she owns, how many vacations she takes, whatever, right. All the things that are basically security. Right. She want to lead with that when the reality is that a man's like, bump all that. I got those things. What I need is a place that I could take off some of this emotional armor because I've been out here since I was a kid. Yeah. Not being able to express that. Now I'm getting with you and you basically demanding more of the same. Is that fair?
It's fair. Again, this is one of those areas where I haven't necessarily graduated to that next level of self-awareness and understanding and things.
We getting there? We getting there?
I don't know. I'm close.
Oh, okay. All right.
And I say that because of this. Like, yes, I do agree that a woman can be a man's home base.
Okay.
Where he, goes out in the world and he's got to wear a mask. He's got to fight all the battles. Mm-hmm. And he wants to come home to a safe environment where he no longer feels like he's got to fight.
Right.
He no longer feels like he's got to wear a mask. Mm-hmm. I don't want to give the impression. So I agree with that.
Okay.
The question is, what does that look like? Like, I don't want to give the impression that looks like you come home and now you have zero control over your emotions. You can
yeah. No.
You can now put the I'm not.
You ain't in here punching walls, sir. You're not in here.
Like I don't want to give the impression that now when you show up in your home that we want it to be a place where now we can no longer have boundaries around our emotions, because you're still leading when you're home.
I know where you're going with this.
You know what I mean? You're still in a leading environment, and you still, and so you don't necessarily get to take your leadership.
Yeah. She still wants to see you as a leader. You can't.
Right. So when you come home, yes, you might be able to take the armor off.
Right.
But you don't remove the crown.
Right.
You're still a leader when you walk in your door. And you still have to
this is me clapping.
And you still have to be that leader when you come in. And leaders have to have control over their emotions.
Yeah.
So what does that look like is the question. Like,
right.
Does that look like I never express my emotions? No. It just means that I have to be more tactful in how I express my emotions because I still have to lead.
It means she validates them, right? Like
you validate them.
She validates them. She gives room for them.
She can acknowledge them.
Right.
She can recognize that me explaining that, something didn't make me feel good.
Right.
Is, I don't have to show the emotion
Right.
when I explain that to her, for her to take it seriously.
Right.
And
Right.
for her to recognize, okay, he's explaining to me how he felt. He's not showing me
Right.
how the emotional remnants of how he feels, but he's explaining it to me. And so now I need to operate in the same way I would if he were sitting
Rolling all
here
over the floor.
rolling all over the floor crying about it.
Right. Right. Right.
Because even him explaining this to me in this way is vulnerability
Right.
for him, because he's not going to tell his staff, well, you guys hurt me when you didn't respond to my email on time, in a way that he's going to tell you,
Yeah.
you know, I don't like you when you don't respond to me, to my text messages
Right.
after the whole day. You know, I want to hear from you and know that you're okay.
Right.
You know, that in and of itself is a mark of vulnerability, to say, like, you know, I'm not saying that you need to respond to me because I own you and dot.
Right. Right.
I'm explaining to you that it doesn't make me feel good when I'm sitting at work all day trying to guess where you are
Right.
and whether or not you got home or what have you when I text you.
Now
So
can I
yeah,
interject a story there, because you brought something up? I feel immediately attacked. Not from you. Not from you, but in general. And I do want to add some color and context to this, because sometimes we can talk in abstracts and people just like, but this is actually happening in real life. And you mentioned something, and that's good, because this is actually a part of an issue that was in my marriage when I was married. And you know what I mean? Like, listen, these are part of the reasons why I'm not married anymore. You live and you learn and you grow. So
living
I
you
mean,
learn, you grow.
you know, so, but that was one of the things. So I also worked in a very high speed, high pressure environment that was very volatile, changing from moment to moment. So I just want to add context. I know it's going to sound like I'm making an excuse for myself. It is, but it is not. Right. And so my husband at the time he would text me, and it would be like hours if I will respond. And not because I wasn't it wasn't like I was like this, and then put my phone to the side. Like, that's not what was happening.
Right.
Right. It was just, I was doing all these things. Now, the reality is, because I know we make things a lot of gray and nuance, but sometimes it's just shake down to the reality. I was not prioritizing the text back. I was not. For what, right? I can make all these excuses for it, because I was busy. I was writing reports. I was out doing this. I was out doing that. And those things are absolutely true. But I was also prioritizing a minute for me to just step away and just be silent for a second versus answering his message. Okay. So made perfect sense in my mind. And I felt like he should understand that. And he was going, to your point, was like, I just want to know you're okay. I want to be connected to you. I want to be like all these things. And I heard none of it. Right. I completely was like, yo, you are being so extra and ridiculous right now. And you are making this out to be like somebody is purposely not talking to you. And I'm super busy, right? Like, I'm super, and it was true, right? Like, what I was saying was true, but I was failing to give room to his feelings in that space. Like, two things could be true at the same time. You could be busy and he could need a thing, right? And so how do you guys both figure out how to make that work? And my failure in that situation was I was refusing to see his part. It was my thing was taking up my thing was the only thing that was valid. I'm busy. What do you want from me? You got to work around my busyness instead of saying his feelings are real. How do I work around that? So I just want to give a real life, like, this is how that can look, and just a level of accountability there.
Do you think that a part of that was because you didn't recognize how important it was to him because of the way that he presented it to you?
Yes, I think I didn't recognize, first of all, because I'm not a man, right? And so I don't think that I recognize from a man's perspective what it is to cover another person. Right. So I didn't have respect for his position in that space so that I could make his job easier, right? Like, I wasn't, it's like, you only know your own role, the thing that you
Yeah.
doing. And so you
Yeah.
only see it from that place, but you
Yeah.
don't recognize the response, like what everybody else is doing. And so you're looking
Yeah.
at them like, bro, and it's like, you making that person's job harder than it has to be. Right.
Yeah.
So I think that I didn't, one, I just didn't understand, but two, and this, like, complete, I wasn't trying to,
Yeah.
right? I wasn't trying to put myself in, like, to hear from his side and say, why is this so important to him? I was just like, I can't do it. Move
Yeah.
it. And
Yeah.
I wasn't like, but why is he making a thing about this?
Yeah.
And I think that was the problem and the
Do you
failure.
think if he had started crying about it, like, and like, I need you to call me
Well,
back?
listen, that would have made it worse. That would have made it worse. No, seriously, I would have been like, nah, this dude, listen, I can't even rock with you. Nah, it ain't even gonna work. No, listen, but
It's not. That's kind of the point, right?
right. But
Right.
because I'm also a very alpha female. Like, I also,
Yeah.
and I shouldn't say that. Thank you, Holy Spirit. I'm gonna take that back. I am a woman who has been forced to be very alpha-ish in a lot of spaces because of whatever life has demanded. I don't think that's my natural desire or leaning. It's just what I have become, right? When I need to. So let me just be clear about that. Okay. Which I think more women need to be aware of. Stop calling yourself an alpha female. I don't know that that's necessarily true, but I digress. Okay. I'm gonna give myself in a whole lot of trouble. Anyway, listen, I'm over here.
I'm gonna let you talk to the sisters, and I'm gonna talk to the brothers.
Right. Because
but
you know what I mean? Yeah, that's real. We we calling ourselves stuff that we not really, and it's selling a lie to ourselves, and it's selling a lie to people on the outside.
Well, it's because we trying to glorify the our problems.
Yeah.
We trying to turn
trauma and our independence.
Yeah, we trying to turn our trauma responses into achievements.
Yeah.
And they're not.
Not.
It's not an achievement to be,
to be a thug,
to just survive.
Be an emotional thug.
Yeah, like the only place where it's achievement to just survive is the TV show Survivor. Like that's the only place where you get rewarded
where
for
you're winning,
just surviving.
Right.
And so there's a lot of people who've had to do things just to survive.
Right. Now we got to figure out how to thrive.
Yeah. But it seems that we now wear as badge of honors the things that we've had to do to survive. It's people who get stuck in the wilderness and got to eat humans in order to survive, but they don't leave out of there like, I'll be eating humans. Like, that's not.
Leave that there.
Leave that there. Like, leave that there. That's not something that now should represent you for the rest of your life.
Right.
Moving forward, like, you're not about to open up a human restaurant now and teach everybody how to eat humans. Like, no, you did that in order to survive a traumatic experience.
Right.
So that you could live.
And we're going to leave it there.
And we're going to leave it there.
Yeah.
And move on.
And grow past that. And we're going to learn how to do something different.
And learn how to be something different.
But in answer to your question, what could he have done? I don't know. I was going to say, I don't know what he could have done. I do know two things. Or two things could have happened in that scenario. One, I think that he could have communicated the why.
Mm-hmm.
So he was telling me what he wanted from me, but he wasn't telling me why he wanted it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if he would have told me what it represented for him, that would have given more perspective to it.
Yeah.
This represents, I'm just trying to make sure you're safe. When you answer me back, right, it feels like you are prioritizing me. Mm-hmm. You're prioritizing my feelings, our relationship, whatever, right? If he would have given me the why, mm-hmm. I think it would have made, painted a clearer picture.
Yeah.
So that's the one part. But for my end, I think me being more curious mm-hmm. about it would have been more helpful. I also think that I could have done a better job at not making him quantify his feelings. And that was something that I was terrible at. So even though I know I just said that that's what he could have did, I literally just said that. I know.
It's a paradox.
It's a paradox. Listen, one thing can be true at the same time. Okay, so here's the thing. It would have been nice for him to do it. It also would have been nice for me not to demand that he do it.
Right.
So both things would have been.
But part of that has to do with you knowing without him having to say it.
Right.
And so that's a different level of understanding that people can, grow to.
Yeah.
Where you don't even have to say the why.
Right.
You automatically know the why without him having to sit down and open up his journal and go through last night's writings as to how it made him feel and all of the stuff. It's enough.
I was the buffoon in the relationship. So I mean, listen.
But here's the thing. Like, this is also one of those things that, we also lose by not having, a lot of dads in the mix with their daughters. I got 2 little girls, and I try to explain to them why I do the things that I do and why I say the things that I say so they can get a better understanding of why I'm telling them not to do certain things.
Yeah.
And so, my oldest daughter, she is very much, I want to do it, has always been that way. She wants to call downstairs to talk to the front desk when we're at the hotel and tell them all the things that we need. She wants to do X, Y, Z. And, to the extent I want to let her, have that freedom to do those things, but still cover her.
Right.
And, we had a time, we were in Virginia Beach a couple weeks ago, and, they were in the pool. I was down there with them at the pool, and I sent them upstairs to get dressed, we'll get ready for bed. And I had, Uber Eats coming. So I was waiting in the lobby for Uber Eats to come. And I'm down there in the lobby, and the front desk guy is like, "Hey, you're in room 405, right?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, your daughter just called down and said that the TV is broken. And so I'm going to send somebody upstairs to fix the TV."
Well, at least he said something before he did it.
Right.
Yeah.
He said that was the only way I'd have known.
Right.
Is that he said something.
Yeah.
Right. And so, damn Uber Eats, right? Like, we had at the front desk. And I'm telling the dude, like, "Yo, like, next time let me know." And I shoot upstairs and get there like just when the dude is walking in to fix the TV.
Right.
And, I'm standing there while he's fixing the TV, giving her the stone cold ice glare. Stone cold.
Bless her heart. Bless her heart.
Cold ice glare,
Who's
right? That's cute, so it don't matter when you're a dad. You don't care.
That's fair.
When they hit a certain age, like that little cute stuff don't work no more. And so dude, fixes the TV, gets it working, and leaves. And I was just like, "What's up?" Like,
yeah, what you doing?
Your sister is in the shower right now.
Right.
You're in here. It ain't nobody here. It's nobody here.
Right.
The only reason that I knew that somebody was coming upstairs was because the guy just happened to see me in the lobby.
Right.
And say, "Your daughter just called. I just sent somebody upstairs to fix the TV." Had I not known, I could have been down there still.
Right.
And this dude who I don't know is 2 feet away from your sister who in the shower.
Right.
And there's nobody here to protect y'all.
Right.
Now, I'm thinking that, but I didn't say it verbally.
Right.
And I'm like, "Why am I upset?" And she's like, "Because somebody else came up here and you weren't here." I'm like, exactly. Like, so why would you call downstairs to have somebody come upstairs knowing that I'm not here?
Right.
I'm sorry.
She didn't even think of, she wasn't
thinking about it.
That's not her role. Her role is not to be dad or protector.
But she knows that it's not because I'm trying to dim her light.
Right.
She knows that it's not because, I don't want to see her be independent.
Right.
And address problems on her own.
Right.
She recognizes that wasn't the reason that I was upset at the moment. That the reason that I was upset at the moment was because she put herself in a position where I could not defend her.
Right.
Or protect her in the way that I should as her father. And, for her to be able to know that, she's 12. So, knowing that didn't stop her from doing it, but now she had a moment to think and say, yeah, my bad.
Put all the pieces together.
Without adding in an assumption rooted in not having dad, the protector around her, and adding some assumption that I just don't want to see her be independent. And I want to make her stay a child for the rest of her life. and I'm trying to dim her light.
Right.
And yada, yada, yada.
But that implies a healthy relationship, right? Like that's a healthy relationship. And you said, I do want to be clear, my dad was physically present, right?
Yeah.
I did have a father, but my father was not emotionally present, which I think is to the piece that you are speaking to, right? My dad, we did not have that kind of, in fact, emotions were, I'm a very unusual situation. Emotions were very frowned upon in my household. So I actually for a long time, I tended to be like, for lack of, the dude in the relationship, like just super emotionally, just hardcore.
Yeah.
That was just the way I was trained up. Right now I'm in a place of being more embracing of that, but that can also be like, I don't know what to do with myself. It's emotions out of nowhere.
You're right. Like to be clear, it's not just having somebody who's got a penis walking around you.
Absolutely, got to be involved.
It's got to be somebody who understands. And I got no qualms telling them, like, look, if something ever happened to y'all, like, I wouldn't know what to do with myself.
Right.
I'm here to protect y'all. Like, I was terrified when he said somebody was coming upstairs.
Right.
And I've got to, now I don't have to be sitting there crying and yelling at the top of my lungs, unable to control my emotions. But I'm telling you these things so that you have an understanding of why I lay out the boundaries that I'm laying out for you.
Right. There would be no respect if you did all that. Just
and so I think that's a part of it. You're absolutely right. And that comes to the emotional intelligence of the man, right? Like that's a level of emotional intelligence to be able to tell someone not just what you want them to do, but why you need them to do it.
Right. Well,
what happens if it doesn't get done, and how it impacts me emotionally and us as a family.
Right.
So that they understand it.
That's good. That the I think it's what you're saying is that the emotional intelligence also for both men and women is the understanding of why that other person is having the emotions that they are doing tied to their experience that may not be yours. And that is, So I think that's good. So I know we could talk for hours, and we probably will if left unchecked.
I'm gonna have a hard time editing this, but I know you got it though.
Listen, I'm not editing nothing. Are you serious? They getting all this, all of it.
You can't drop some 2-hour podcast on.
Listen, a 2-hour podcast. Maybe I'll split it in the middle and do a to be continued. Probably not,
Lord.
But it'll be all right. Listen, but I do want to. There's, my final. I have a final question, but we're not going to talk for another hour tangent on it. But I do want to get your perspective. I'm gonna tell you mine first, because you ain't gonna let me live if I let you go first. So, what is this idea of when men say that they're not being in relationships because they are protecting their peace? And so I know why you're laughing, because you know what my feeling is on it. My feeling on it is that it's not, what we're calling peace is actually laziness. By protecting peace means I don't want to be accountable to someone else. I don't want to have the responsibility of doing the work, of showing up, of being disciplined, of having control over my, instant gratifications. I don't want it, right? Like, so peace for me is actually avoidance.
Mhm.
That's peaceful. When you are trying to hold me to an expectation and a boundary and a standard, and it is too much for me to do that, my ability to be able to pull away from you is peaceful to me. It's not peace. It's lazy and it's avoidant, but it's peaceful to me. Meanwhile, you causing all kind of trauma and havoc to the other person.
Yeah.
But not saying that that's all men, right? I'm saying that's running wild. That for me, it feels like that's very prevalent.
Yeah.
So if I'm wrong, explain to me and all the women, right? What does that mean when he says he's protecting his peace? What peace? What peace exactly is it that women are disrupting, that they feel like being out of a relationship helps them to maintain?
So, like multiple things can be correct, right? Like I'm 100% certain that there is a segment of the male population where peace means like, I don't want to have to answer to anybody. Like, it's peaceful to me not to be responsible for anyone else. It's peaceful to me to, be able to go to Burger King, grab me a meal, and not have to think whether or not she's hungry.
Right.
I mean, it's like that is a level of peace which I'm 100% certain there's a boatload of guys out there who subscribe to.
All right.
There are also guys out there who have been in traumatic relationships. And the only experience with relationships they have are with somebody who was incredibly toxic.
Yeah.
And I don't even like using that word, but just was not a great representative of a spouse or a significant other or girlfriend.
Right.
And that's their only experience. And so they view relationships through that lens. And so, yeah, not being in a relationship is peaceful compared to that.
Right.
Right. And it's very easy to get on social media and your algorithms start to align with your worldview. And you start seeing all the other, horrible examples of girlfriends and wives that match the one you had. And so now you
Yeah,
think,
I knew it.
see, I knew it. All like this, and so, in your mind, relationship becomes synonymous with dealing with somebody like that. And so, yeah,
Right.
you see that as peaceful.
Right.
And then you've got, folks who are looking at the relationship dynamic and, again, they and the people that they're dealing with aren't really going at it about in a service kind of mentality. It's all, what can you do for me? And that doesn't feel peaceful
Right.
to
Right.
him.
Right.
And so there's a difference between, I don't want to meet the expectations of being a good husband versus I don't want to meet society's expectations or social media's expectations of being what a good husband is. That don't sound peaceful.
Right.
And so, I can say that another thing is there's some guys who were in relationships for a very long time and really never got to know who they were. And, as soon as they graduated college or got into adulthood, they were automatically thrust into a relationship where their responsibility was on others. And even if you were with a woman and she asked you, how can I make you happy? He wouldn't be able to honestly answer because, and she can't do anything about it because if he don't know how to make himself happy, she just, poking around. She's poking around in the dark at that point.
Right.
He doesn't know. And the only time that he has had the ability to experience that type of, get to know himself is when he was single. And when he becomes single, and then he's kind of forced to learn what peace means for him. It may mean, coming home to a house that smells good, coming, being able to go focus on hobbies that he has that he never really explored before. But there are women out there who will cater to those things. And you just have to find somebody who has that understanding and is willing to cater to the things that make you happy and bring you peace. But there's a lot of guys out there who don't even know what peace means for them. And, they've never experienced it in a relationship. And a lot of times they never experienced it in a relationship because they were never able to explain or communicate what that looks like.
Yeah.
And they never looked for someone in that context. And so if you look for somebody, if you know what brings you peace, and you go out here, look, it's literally 3.5 billion of y'all on the planet.
Literally.
Obviously, we know the population gets smaller compared to where you living at.
Right.
But there's a lot of women
you
out
got
here.
options. You got
options, brother.
Somebody out there doing
There's
the things
somebody out there who will cater to the things naturally, not because she a pick me,
right?
Not because she's just trying to make you happy or improve.
Right. That's just who she is.
It's just who she is that will cater to those things, and you can still protect your peace. So if you like me, like, I love being in a clean home. Like, it may be man version of clean, but clean. You know what I'm saying? Like,
it's clean.
Like,
clean.
It gotta smell good.
Right,
it gotta,
right. Put all the things.
Had the right type of, decoration and stuff to it. The seat can't be overflowing and stuff. Like I gotta have that in order for me to feel good.
Right.
So that means when I go out looking for a woman to spend the rest of my life with, I gotta know how she keeps her home.
Right.
If she don't keep her home in a way that protects my peace, then we not gonna mesh together.
Right.
My father's a great example of that. Like my father, he's on his second marriage, and he and my mother split up when I was probably around like 13, 14 years old. And I was really like, obviously, everybody hates to see their parents, separate or divorce. And, I was no different. And I came to a realization now that they've hit like 20 plus years of marriage. Like him and my mother just was not,
wasn't the thing.
They weren't there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I had to come to the realization that he found someone who is a neat freak like he is, who does not meet his energy, at any point in time. My mother meeting energy. My mother is meeting energy.
All of the energy.
She is meeting it with a smile. She is meeting the energy that you bring forward before you even knew you had the energy. She has already been there.
She's meeting you there.
You there. She was there first. She is going to be there with your energy
when you get there.
You got it. Okay. His wife now 20 plus years. She's not like that. She is completely like this. He can be erratic up and down.
And she's stable.
She's not meeting the energy.
Yeah.
She's all. And so he's found somebody who just their nature of who they are. She's not trying to be that.
Right. That's just who she is.
Who she is.
Right.
And he's found someone who meets those things that cater to something that brings him peace. And so for what I would tell guys is that I hear you when it comes to wanting to make sure that you protect your peace, but that's not a reason to check out of relationships altogether.
Right.
It's really just a reason to be more selective about the women you choose to bring into your life.
Right.
And so when you're not selective and you just bring in anything in your life that look good,
that's why you ain't got no peace.
That's why you don't have no peace. And you can't now apply that to every single woman on this planet or relationships in general. You just have to do a better job of we have to do a better job of being selective as to the type of women that we bring in our circumference. And that means that some of those women who look amazing, you know,
Ain't it?
some of those women who are amazing. Like my mother's a great woman. That's
Yeah.
not to knock
Yeah.
her at all. She just don't fit for
Him.
him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so like that means that, and that's another thing that women gonna have to understand. That you can be amazing. You can be brilliant.
Yeah.
You can be gorgeous.
Right.
But you just may not be, and you could be a great woman.
Right. Just not his.
You just may not necessarily have those characteristics that match what he needs.
Right. And vice versa.
And vice versa.
Right.
He could
may
be
not
an
have
amazing dude.
Right.
And I've been in that scenario. Like I feel like I was a great husband, amazing dude, all of those things. But I just was not the things that she needed.
Right.
That would have, brought out the best in her.
Yeah.
And so you got to recognize that not everybody, we all ain't for everybody, but that doesn't mean that, that just relationships in general are a pathway to living in a non-peaceful environment. Like I know plenty of dudes, I got plenty of friends, who, they found somebody who is the yin to their yang.
Yeah.
And they match completely. And it works for them.
Yeah.
And, we aren't really taught as men to be selective. Well, we're taught to get the Cinderella. Like if she looked good and she got the ball gown on and the whole nine,
and she needs you. And she needs you.
And she needs you. Like, there you go, problem solved.
Right.
We're not really taught to be selective. To one, learn who we are. This is part of the reason why I think a lot of guys get told to wait until they're a little bit older before they get married, because you need some time to learn who you are. So,
well, that's everybody. Everybody needs to do that.
So that you can find somebody that aligns with that. Because, like, if you don't know who you are and what you need, you're going to choose poorly. Right. And then you're going to turn around and blame relationships for the fact that you didn't know who you are when you showed up. Who you were when you showed up, or what you needed when you showed up. And because that person that you chose didn't necessarily have those tools, now you pissed off with them.
Mad.
And you mad. But you picked her. You picked her.
Both ways. So I just want to, again, tangible to give some context to that, is that so protecting your peace looks like boundary setting and boundary keeping. It doesn't look like avoidance. Avoidance is not the same thing. And so if fellas, if you out there just excusing yourself from the game, I just ain't gonna play. That's not, I guess that is a level of protection, but quite honestly, it's also cutting you off from the opportunity to experience the joy and the peace and the love that comes from, because it's a different type of peace, right? That comes from being in a loving relationship that you don't experience by not being in one. And so being an active participant in that by saying, this is what I need to feel peaceful. And so I'm going to lean into finding a woman who has the same values that I do in this space, in order for that to be a peaceful synergy between the two of them.
And another thing is, I think we, guys, we tend to shy away from being honest. We shy away from being completely honest with y'all. We rather ghost sometimes, or
I had to contain myself on that. Okay.
Because like it's not a comfortable conversation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when we say stuff like, I'm just really not looking for anything right now. That really means I don't know if it's you yet.
See, right? Okay.
That means I don't know if it's you yet. and I'm not sure, and I don't want to set expectations as though it could be you. I'm not sure yet. We'll see. And then it's, I don't want her to be in a relationship that's just something that I'm looking for. That means I don't want to be in a relationship with you, but
Listen, why? Okay, but look, 'cause we're about to get on a whole other tangent. We're not going to do that. We're just going to we're going to put a period in it right here. But listen, but there's also the ability to communicate that literally just that way, to say,
yeah.
I am open to a relationship. I don't know if that's going to be me and you, but I am open to one if the right things come along and make sense. That's not a hard thing to say, because quite honestly, I think that a lot of women communicate that. I know I have 100% that I have said, I'm open to a relationship. I don't know it's going to be you.
Yeah.
That's why I'm here. I'm trying to figure out if you the dude. But it's not an automatic, right? But I'm just
we also
saying,
don't want to be the bad guy, but we don't want to be.
That
So
doesn't make you a bad guy.
I'm not saying I am. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
like, guys typically don't want to be the bad guy, so they don't want to say that.
How does that being a bad guy though? That's what I don't understand. How is that
take yourself out the scenario. All right, take yourself out the scenario.
Okay, I'm out.
Take yourself out. All right. So for starters, guys like to manage the expectation, right? Like we don't generally. There are some guys who will be completely open to be like, I'm looking for a relationship, girl, yada yada yada. I think you could be the one, and be completely lying through their teeth.
Absolutely.
Just because they're trying to get something.
Happens all the time.
And so there's a lot of guys out there who don't want to do that.
Right.
And so they go the exact opposite.
Well, they swing.
And
that helps.
They say, I don't want to be in a relationship. That's not something that I'm looking for at all.
Right
now. I'm open to being friends and learning and getting to know each other.
But they actually limit themselves, right? Because if you tell me, I know you said take me out of it.
See, you keep on putting yourself back in.
Just for a second.
Right.
I'm just gonna put a toe in just for a second, because I think I represent some women, at least some, that when a man says that, there's a piece of me that immediately shuts down and gets reserved, like that you don't get from me, because I am now protecting myself, because you may let it be known if I even entertain you at all, because I might just say, all right, peace, then I'm out, done, thanks, but no thanks, right? Cool. So you have cut yourself by saying that I'm not looking for a relationship at all. You've cut yourself off that the only women that continue to engage with you are women,
the ones who are willing to
that are flighty, that are not going to show up. And it's just,
I'm not advocating for doing that. I'm just saying this is what a lot of guys will do.
Well, we need to have some mind shifts. That's why we here,
because they want to manage the expectation. They don't want to give you the impression that you're in the tryout. That you're in tryout right now.
That's the point here.
They want to manage the expectation that you're not in tryouts right now. One, that's one. Two, I think guys genuinely want to see how women show up when they're not attempting to be in a relationship with you.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of women out there who have
just be friends. Don't introduce any sort of romantic aspect. If that's what you're looking for,
I agree with you on that.
Don't introduce any sort of romantic aspect. Then you do get to see who that woman is without that. The minute you introduce you trying to fill up on and like this and that and cooking dinner and hanging out with the kids,
you learn more about a woman by just being her friend than you ever will being in a relationship with
Correct.
her. And so, I totally support that perspective. I'm just saying there's a lot of guys who, and there's a lot of women out there who, at least for a couple of years, they can play the best girlfriend ever. If they see a ring in the horizon, on the horizon,
right.
She can be whoever you want her to be. He will. He like this kind of wig. She will buy 8 of them joints. He like this. Oh yeah, he like for you to dress like this. I'ma dress like that, and all of those things. And guys, we see that. Like we've seen that clearly, and like. Some dudes get caught with the okie doke, and you think you getting with, one person, and then like she take the mask off like after the wedding, and you like, oh crap, what'd I do?
What I get. That's what I'm. Well, that's why I told you. That's why I'm in a space of like not dating. I just said I will be.
You just said don't check out a dating guy.
No, I'm not. Listen, no. Let me finish. You already know. I don't know why you're trying to play me like that. Don't do
Because
that.
I want to put it out here for your crowd. So
Don't listen. Don't play me like that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that.
I want your fans to see.
Right. No. Listen, I am saying I have checked out of the dating scene of just that, right? That there's a level of romanticism that is in this and on this, because that creates expectations that we don't know if we want to or can fulfill for each other at this point. And so that just sets us up for failure, that if this don't go right, one of us is going to be feeling some type of way. Yes. So what I am doing though, is that I'm like, okay, I have friends, right? I have friends that I hang out with and we cool. Do you, homie, do whatever you want to do. You want to,
sex.
No sex. No sex. No, that's why I said no romance. Look, I done just killed my whole entire dating. Like, instead of me having that conversation on a one-on-one basis, I just had it just told.
Hey, that's why I said I'm out here for your fans.
Yeah, no sex.
Like, don't sign up. If you coming to be friends, don't think that you getting friends with the benefits.
You're not getting friends with benefits. You're not. Listen, but that's the thing. Is like, I'm looking at it and saying it keeps it clean.
Right.
So now you don't have to feel no kind of way, and I don't have to feel no kind of way. We are, honest to goodness, being friends and just getting to know each other without any expectation. If something organically develops and we start feeling each other and the vibe changes and all the things, then it's because we both know each other. We recognize who we are. And this is a natural progression. It's not forced. It happened and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't, listen, there's no letdown, because we always just been friends.
We was just friends. Yo, I'm trying to tell you, I've learned so much obviously I learned a lot from you, but I've learned so much just by having friends that are women. Like, I didn't have a whole lot of women friends when I was married. I grew up, with a bunch of guys. I didn't have a whole lot of women friends when I was younger. And so, but, after my divorce, like, I got a multitude of y'all.
Yeah.
And I learned
you got it to the harem.
See, that's why, that's you making it sexual.
I love you, Saran. I love you.
Making it sexual. I'm just talking about legitimate friends, like none of that, but just legitimate friends. And you learn so much from women just by being cool with them.
Yeah.
You learn the ones who are really solid girlfriends.
Yeah.
And people. And then you learn the ones who, bruh. Never.
I know why you single. I see it. I understand.
Never. And this is the type of woman that you wouldn't be able to tell. Just like they know how to put on the whole show. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right. We're trying to get something. Yeah.
Like, when you cool with them and you friends with them and you like, yo, you are the beginning of villain stories out here, yo. Like,
this is how the horror stories start.
This is how all the villain stories start. And you the first person, you the main attraction to the villain story. Like, you the main character in these villain stories.
Right. You are not the heroine. You are literally the opposite.
You know what I'm saying? So, but it's good to have that. And then you also get a better understanding of how women think, how they process information. And it helps you do a better job of communicating with them. I don't think it's enough men and women who are friends out here, which is why most of y'all don't know how to talk to one another.
Right.
You don't know how to, think the way that they think about the way they process information. Right. The only people that you communicate is with your homies. The only people that you communicate with is your homegirls. And, once you get together, you got zero idea on how to communicate with each other and what makes each other tick. And, then you just chalk it up to, well, they crazy. And I'm done with women. I'm done with men.
Right. And we can't do that. We can't, that's not the answer. That's
no
not it.
community has ever succeeded. No society has ever succeeded if there's that level of tension
All right. We
between
need each other.
men and women. We need each other. We all bring different things to the table that are essential to, moving our society and communities together. And,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
shouldn't be elevating one group's doings over the other. And one of the things that I hate
Relevant.
seeing, and that's part of the thing that I really hate seeing in politics right now, like, is, it's this level of, propping up, one group over the other as though,
That's humanity. That's what we do as people.
but it's one of those things that divide communities.
Oh, 100%.
Like, and you
Yeah.
see it happen in politics all the time. Like, this, for the Black community, it's like a level of pedestalization,
Yeah.
and of Black women, and a level of demonization of men.
Mm-hmm.
When at the end of the day, we in it together.
Yeah.
You pedestalize both because we're a united community,
Right.
who are in it together. But external factors could not care less about what's best for our community.
Right.
They just care about what's best for their bottom line, what's best for the number of votes that they get, and they've made the calculated decision that we're gonna get more votes over here. So we need to pedestalize this group over that group. And you don't see that, and you don't see them do that in any other community other than ours because they feel like it's an opportunity there. They don't go into the Asian community and be like, Asian women, y'all are the backbone of the Asian community. Like they don't do that. They don't go into Latino communities and be like, oh, Latino men, you guys are the ones who make y'all the real ones. Y'all,
here's the thing.
they don't do that in those communities.
Right. I understand that, but here's the thing. They can't. You know why? Because those communities are getting married. Those communities are still engaging in marriage and family and relationships. They can do that with us because we are not presenting as one unit. Only 34% of, right? I talked about this, like of marriages of Black people are between a Black man and a Black woman. So the majority of us are not getting married and we're not marrying each other. So then, yes, you can create that division.
Do you think that the division, that messaging
calls the division, or the division calls the message?
What came first, the chicken or the egg, right?
Right.
Like, has there been a concerted effort? I think that there's been a concerted effort.
I think that there's been a concerted effort, and I think we
divide and conquer.
Yeah.
In our community that has happened for 50 plus years. That has been
we're stronger together. A house divided amongst itself cannot stand.
Correct. So, and I think that whether you talk about, government programs, messaging, how businesses message and sell products, all of these things have been designed in a way that has thrown a divide in our community to where the mainstream now feels comfortable highlighting that divide and promoting it in a way that further compounds the problem.
Yes, I absolutely agree. I think that they have played on certain insecurities, certain feelings there, and they have offered an answer to it, and that answer being things that are very much based in like status, greed, lust, things that are very easy and cheap, and by easy I mean instantly gratifying and cheap, but that completely pull you away from what is real and what is foundational and what is healthy and honest and good, right? So make you feel like you are less than a man, right? Understanding and knowing that may be something that this community is suffering with, and then give them the answer to that is, if you have a nice car, if you have grills, if you got a chick with all her cheeks out, if you got money, if you making it rain, then men say, oh, you're right. In our community, let's go do that. Right? And so they offer this answer that is cheap, instantly gratifying, and all that, when the reality is, no, You want that feeling back? You want that respect back, that all that back? Get married, take care of your kids, be
Yes.
community, be a community leader, do things outside of yourself, be focused on faith, get back to God. Like, let's be clear.
And I want to be clear about something, like, because somebody is going to see this and be like, you really think there is that coordinated in order to break up the community? Like, let's be clear about the intent here. I'm not saying that their intent specifically was to put us in this space. I'm saying that folks recognize how to sell products.
Right.
They recognize how to achieve their ends and their goals. And once you have that mindset, decisions are made every step of the way, that even if they don't see what's going to happen 10 steps down the line, they recognize that, hey, look, it's good for politics. Black women are solid votes, but we see what happens when you have families. Families tend to be more conservative.
Right.
In their leanings.
Right.
And so, messaging to one group over the other,
right,
to have greater opportunity for us to be successful on election day, or to be successful, on the bottom line. I know that a family will probably have more financial restraint than individuals do.
Right. Right.
So, it would make sense for, people who are selling products to sell them to single individuals and prop them up to make them feel like they're the new heroines in the world, or they're the real men in the world.
Right.
And we're going to sell them products because it's much easier to sell them products and to convince them to satisfy whatever insecurities they have by buying our stuff than it is to do that to a family. So you start promoting your products and your things to these particular groups. I think it's the height is incredibly diabolical. You're
not wrong. It is.
It's incredibly diabolical when you look at it that way. It was a company that was doing like their college. They were selling college courses. It was one of those like diploma farms or degree farms, where they were selling their product, and it leaked out what their strategy was, and their strategy was essentially to prey on single women. To put their degrees in education up on a pedestal. And again, nobody's knocking degrees in education,
right?
But to put them up on a pedestal and to purposely target them because they felt it was easier to sell them this horse crap product than it was to sell to people who were in a family.
Right. Because her husband would be like, well, wait a minute.
Or the fact that people in a family don't necessarily have the financial need in the same way that a
single person would
by themselves.
Yeah.
So you're manipulating it based on the fact of this environment that has been created, where we've got all these people out here trying to do it on their own, trying to raise families on their own.
Yeah.
Who are looking for opportunities to expand, to make more money, and you come in and you prey on that, on that reality to try to sell a bogus product to these people because one, you know that there's a need there, and two, you don't think that there's anybody who's going to be there who's going to say,
put a boundary around it.
What are you doing?
Right.
Why are we moving towards this? And so you're selling so it's incredibly diabolical to have a political system which has failed to educate Black boys effectively for generations.
Right.
Which has, been a perpetuator of the school to prison pipeline, which was a perpetuator of, the criminal justice system, which locked up a third of or placed a third of Black men in its restraints, which has consistently failed in ensuring that, Black boys are in schools where they feel safe and don't feel targeted. And so then 30 years later or 40 years later, highlight how much better Black women are doing than Black men.
What?
Education and degrees.
Yeah, right. The system worked the way you wanted it to, and then it's completely
diabolical to then say like, oh my gosh, like these black women are just
Yeah.
slapping
Yeah.
these guys out here. They're so much more intelligent
Right.
than these
Right.
guys. Like you create this
Okay, see,
environment.
listen. And again, that plays right into this conversation because to the point that we have had, right? Where yes, these women are doing so much better. You've created this structure for that to be able to happen. And then she doesn't want to marry anyone that's not in
At
at
her
her level, or
educational
higher.
level.
And but
And
you've
again,
ensured,
let's be clear. This is not me complaining about my scenario. I got more degrees in a thermometer.
I
Like
didn't say it was
I'm
you.
not.
I didn't say it was
I'm
me.
just saying your folks because there's going to be some hater out there. Like if you not educated, just say so.
Listen,
Like y'all
no,
all.
Sarah. We are look. I know I didn't. I know I didn't put that in your bio, and that's my bad. That's my bad.
I'm just saying
Okay,
it's going to be somebody down there. Like if you
somebody.
don't just say it. Like I'm
He's
just.
not.
I'm
He's
just
not.
saying. You
This
know.
yes. This scenario.
And I'm
Look,
not even blaming, I'm not blaming sisters for that. I'm blaming this environment that has been created that has, and you can look at it the flip side.
yeah.
You can look at this environment that has promoted this idea of a lack of morals and a lack of decorum, and made it seem like that's something that black women should be proud of.
Right.
And then when
It's exploitive, and it keeps
and
them.
it's exploitive.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
when a brother doesn't want to get married to that,
Yeah.
you know,
Right. Right. But
we
that's the thing, right? That keeps it keeps that divide, and
it
so
keeps that
we
divide
gotta be. We have to be smarter than that. We have to be more aware. We have to be more, we have to hold ourselves and each other more accountable, right? And so I get it. Again, for me, this 100% comes back to a huge part of what our community is missing is faith and God. We have steered away from that in such a, like it shows that we are going to church less, that we are praying less, that we are holding ourselves accountable to God less, and this is what we get. And so I think that when your identity is in God, it becomes harder for somebody else to sell you the identity that they want you to have in order for you to go along with the agenda that they have. But you got a lot of people out here who looking, who tell me what was that book? Are you my mother? Right? You got a lot of people out here who are asking that question, and you got more than enough people who are willing to answer that for you. But when your identity is wrapped in Christ, it doesn't matter about political party. It doesn't matter about job. It doesn't matter about neighborhood, whatever, any of these things. I know who I am. And that dictates how I move in the earth. And that's the problem, is that we don't have that anymore. And so we toss to and fro with the wind.
And look, here's another thing. And I don't want to just make it seem like it's the Democrats and Republicans do it too. Like, I talk to conservative black folks and they have this mentality of we're not a community. Like I do my thing. It's this rugged individualism that you get from kind of like black conservatives, as though we're no longer connected to our community.
Yeah.
And even that in and of itself is creating a divide, maybe not in the household,
right,
but definitely in the community.
In the community.
Where now you think that you're on an island and you guys are doing you and forget what else is happening down the street. And we really got to like go through a process of like purging ourselves from these external thoughts and these external parties who don't care about our community, about our families, about our households. All they care about is their ratings. They care about their votes. They care about their bottom lines. They don't care about us as a community. Therefore, they don't care about us as individuals.
Well, listen, I'm gonna expand that out, right? I know we talking you referring to the black community. To be quite honestly, that goes to the public in general.
The public in general.
The public in general, they don't care, right? And so I don't want anyone to hear this and think, oh, that's just that community. Absolutely not. It's
no, because they do that to all of us. Like they do that to, but I bring up the black community because we can least afford to fall
to be the case
to it because we're on the margins.
Absolutely.
And so I bring up the black community because other communities they're gonna be fine.
Right.
Like they want, they can afford,
They go punt and rally. That's it. That's it.
they can afford to lose a handful of trash. You know,
We cannot.
we can't afford to
Can't
lose
afford it.
anybody.
Yeah, we
We
cannot.
can't afford to lose these households and families that could be adding a lot of fruit to the future of our community.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so,
absolutely.
I'm specifically speaking there because we're the ones who can least afford to go down those paths.
Yeah,
But that doesn't mean that that same strategy isn't being used in other
towards
communities.
everybody. Yeah, yeah.
It's just what they say. They say when everybody got a cold, black folk got the flu.
Yeah.
Like like it's like
It's a little bit more extreme.
there's a little bit more
A little bit more
extreme over
extreme.
here. So when I
Yeah,
say they're
yeah.
not doing that in Latino households and Asian households, it's not to say they won't ever do
Right,
it.
right.
Like please believe
Yeah.
it's going to come a point when they're going to try to infiltrate those communities with this debaucherous
It's profitable. It's profitable. Yeah,
right, with this debaucherous plan and strategy. And they got to see what has happened to other communities that's occurred to. And, you're right when you say the church is part of it. And we need the church. And I'm not even saying that from purely a religious standpoint, but, the church was always supposed to be the entity that brought the moral
right, right. They grounded
right
people,
and
held us
ground
accountable,
right. It's,
protected us, gave us, it was a cornerstone. The church
right.
was a
And so,
cornerstone.
you don't really, because I think that there's been, and I got to be honest, I'm putting myself in the category,
Well,
exodus of a lot of brothers from the church
yeah,
community. Um, you know, yeah, we lose a little bit of that leadership that you expect
yeah,
coming from the church that for a long time really grounded us in our morals and our values. And without that, what are we dependent on? We don't have our own media.
right.
We don't have
You're
our
just winging
own,
it.
we're not in some community where we're on an island,
Right,
where, we absorb garbage that is fed to us by corporations. We absorb food that's fed to us by corporations. Everything that we receive is given to us
right,
by entities that really don't care about us.
right.
And so, without that level of community, what they say, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
we've been on a lot of folks' menu
right,
for a very long time, regardless if they're Democrat or Republican, conservative or liberal, corporatist, capitalist, or, communist,
right,
socialist.
right,
Like all of them try to use us
right.
and try to use our light. And sometimes we are so willing to give it away.
Not sometimes.
Yeah, a lot of times we are so willing to give it away and be fighting for stuff that ain't even our fights to fight.
Look,
Like
look. You about to? Don't go there. Don't go there.
I ain't
Now,
gonna go there. I ain't gonna go there
don't
because
go there. Don't go there. Don't go there. No,
that could start down another path.
Did
You
we not
know?
even gonna do it? I know you saw what I texted you this morning, but we're gonna leave that
Hey,
alone.
look, I'm gonna go ahead and lead all the DEI conversation to somebody else.
Just put up. Just we're
Put
gonna.
a pin in it.
Yeah, we're just gonna stop right there. No, but yeah, yeah, we gotta get back to. And you said that about the being at the table, and I decided. Look, I thought about this last night, and I decided I actually hate that term. What do
Mm-hmm.
you bring to the table? It in all regards, that's the problem. We at the table doing too much consuming and not enough work. And so I no longer care about what you bring to the table. What I want to know is what do you bring to the field? Because I need to know what work you are doing. What energy are you putting in? Time, effort, like what you put into the plow. That's what I want to know. In relationships, the community, and everywhere, I no longer want to know about what you bring it to the table. Doesn't matter.
Look, where did it come from?
Exactly.
Look, don't tell me what you bring it to the table. Just tell me where it's coming from.
Tell me where it's coming from. What you working at, sir? That's what I need to know. What you working at? Don't ask me no more about this table. I'm sick of this table.
Nah, that was more related to the table of decision making.
No, I know. I just
but yeah, you're right. Like,
yeah,
not necessarily what you bring to the table, where it's coming from. Because you could bring money to the table, but where is it coming from?
Right.
What did you do? What did you do for that money? You know, how did you earn that money?
Thank you.
You could bring, you know, all this stuff to the table. Where did it come from?
Right.
Is it really going to nourish us?
Let's get to this. Let's get to the source, sir. And again, because the source is God.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I need to know. What are you
Well,
working at?
if I'm bringing
Where's it
leadership to
coming
the
from?
table, where is that leadership rooted in?
Right.
Is that leadership
Right.
rooted in? Where did it
What's your
come?
field?
Yeah. What field did that come from?
Yeah.
You know, what field did that grow from? Did it
Yeah.
grow from some toxic environment where, you know, you feel that you're the leader just because of what's between your legs and you just
Right.
want to tell people what to do? Is it from a higher being? Is it
Yeah.
from someone that you're serving?
Right.
You
So
know,
that's
those are
what we need to get to. Okay,
absolutely.
look, man. All right, we done went way
I told you
over.
won't have to edit it. Like that was my goal, is to put you in a position where you gotta edit because
Why you trying to make me work?
you're a good editor, and I want you to shine, yo. Like I want you to
You doing me a,
shine.
you doing me a favor.
I'm doing you a favor. Like I'm gonna give you a whole bunch of stuff, some jewels, some nonsense. It's up to you to chop that up.
I'm not doing it. I'm getting ready to go right. I'm ready to go right to the center half mark and say,
You should not have shown me all the edits that you were doing. And like you should have never shown me that, because now I'm like, oh yeah, you good.
Oh, you got it.
You got it. I ain't write no notes down to try to stay concise or nothing. I was like, we just gonna talk and I'm gonna let her edit this joint up.
Listen, I'm mad at you. And I'm mad at you for it. I'm mad at you for it. No, listen, I'm not mad.
I receive your anger. I receive it. I recognize where it comes from.
You gonna validate me?
I'm validating your feelings. They are yours.
And you're not gonna make me qualify them.
I'm not gonna make you qualify them.
You receive them just because.
I receive.
All right, two. This is it. This is where we closing it out. This is the round out. Number one, do you see my shirt?
Mr. Owl?
Do you not remember this?
How many licks does it take to get to the center of the Tootsie Pop?
You win it.
I don't know if that's appropriate for this drink, man. I'm gonna do. You're not being appropriate right now.
That is literally a commercial from when we were growing up. What are you talking about?
First of all, there's a whole lot of stuff that was when we were growing up that is completely inappropriate today. Okay? All right? Mr. Owl is one of them.
Wow. Okay,
Mr. Owl is one of them.
What you're not gonna do is make me not holy. Listen,
I ain't make you nothing.
Listen, what God said is holy, do not say. What God said is clean, do not say it's unclean. What God said is clean, do not say it's unclean.
I'm just saying, Mr. Owl got canceled a long time ago, and you didn't know.
I did.
You didn't know Mr. Owl was canceled.
I didn't.
You know.
Well, okay. Well, listen. All right. Well, it's too late now. He's in the episode.
We gonna edit this conversation out. Hopefully, don't nobody pay attention. Make sure you edit this part out, because now everybody gonna go back and be like, look at her talking about being godlike with her Mr. Owl shirt on. Look at her.
Oh man. Okay. Last thing.
The shirt not matching the vibe. The shirt
wow. Last thing. What's the best piece of life-changing advice you've ever been given? You got 1 minute. That's it. 1 minute. What's the best piece of life-changing advice you've ever been given?
Best piece of life-changing advice that I've ever been given.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily verbal advice. It was an action.
Okay.
I was in high school and I got into a fight at an airport after 9/11 at that.
Oh my God. Okay.
It was with one of my teammates, and my coach kicked me off the team. I wasn't expecting him to kick me off the team. I thought, you know, I was special and I was going to be treated special.
Mm.
But I was treated just like everybody else. And the lesson that I learned from that is you got consequences to your actions.
Yeah.
And, you know, you have to, when it happens, you got to stand up to it. You got to live with it. And you have to learn from it. And, but nobody is above consequences. And he didn't say anything other than give me my stuff back. But
other than go sit down.
yeah. Other than nice to know you. But I learned a heck of a lot in that moment. And it was the last time that I've ever like physically gotten into it with somebody.
Yeah.
And I learned my lesson, and it was probably the best advice that I ever received. Hardest lesson that I had to learn.
Yeah.
But
That's
sometimes
good.
hardest lessons can be, the greatest advice that you ever receive.
Absolutely. I like that. That's good. That's good. That is a good lesson, and it applies in every uh facet of life,
Yep.
right? That yeah, you are not the biggest thing in this, and we all got to play by the rules if we're gonna play.
Mhm.
So that's
Mhm.
good. That's good. All right. Well,
Yep.
I thank you and I appreciate you for being on with me today. This has been a heck of a conversation. Well, which I knew was going to be. I mean, I started out and I said that. I didn't even get to half of my questions, quite honestly, but that just means we're about to do it again at another point.
Sure.
Um, but I appreciate you. I thank you all for being here. I hope that this was insightful, that helps you to think about some things and challenge some of the ways that you may be seeing some stuff, and to spark some conversation amongst you and yours. And so if we've done that, then we have fulfilled a duty and assignment today. Y'all have an amazing week. Be blessed.